This is the Wednesday, November 15th, 2023 afternoon session of the Portland City Council. Keelan, please call the roll.
Good afternoon. Knaps.
Here.
Rubio.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
Gonzalez.
Here.
Wheeler.
Here. We'll hear from legal counsel on the rules of order and decorum. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Welcome to the Portland City Council. To testify before council in person or virtually, you must sign up in advance on the council agenda at www.portlandgov/council/agenda. Information on engaging with City Council can be found on the Council Clerk's webpage. The presiding officer preserves order and decorum during City Council meetings. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify, unless otherwise stated. A timer will indicate when your time is done. Disruptive conduct such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony or council deliberations will not be allowed. If you cause a disruption, a warning will be given. Further disruption will result in ejection from the meeting. Anyone who fails to leave once ejected is subject to arrest for trespass. Additionally, council may take a short recess and reconvene virtually. Your testimony today should address the matter being considered. When testifying, state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Disclose if you are a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. For testifiers joining virtually, please unmute yourself once the council clerk calls your name. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get started, I just want to share the same update I shared this morning. Today, the Portland City Council will host its last meeting at Portland City Hall for a while in preparation for the voter-approved changes to Portland's elections and form of government. Upgrades will begin this fall to make room for all 12 councilors and increased expanded seating for people testifying. The goal is to have the council chambers ready by January 1st, 2025 as part of the voter-approved transition. Starting with the November 29th council meeting, members of council will participate virtually in council meetings and work sessions. Members of the public may choose to participate virtually or alternatively in person. The Lizzie Weeks room, which is room 100 in the Portland building next door, will be available for community members to watch the meeting and to provide public testimony. In January, then, council will begin meeting at an alternative site in person about half a mile south near Portland State University at the city's Development Services Building. That's 1900 Southwest 4th Avenue, room 2500. Thank you, and that'll of course be on our website, but I just want people to be aware of that. With that, Keelan, we have one item for this afternoon, time certain item number 964.
Direct the City Attorney's Office to seek required approvals from the United States Department of Justice and the United States District Court and comply with any mandatory collective bargaining obligations for amendments to the Department of Justice Settlement Agreement and to City Code related to the Community Police Oversight Board.
Colleagues, this item asks Council to authorize the City Attorney to engage in discussions with the Department of Justice and the Court regarding a new system of police accountability as required by city charter. Before we begin the presentation, I understand there's 2 amendments from Commissioner Rubio, so I'll hand it over to Commissioner Rubio.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm introducing 2 amendments. The first amendment is to address concerns raised about the makeup of the nominating committee for the initial Oversight Board membership. My hope with this amendment is to remove the Police Review Board community member slot and add an additional Citizen Review Committee member in order to add an additional community voice that is not within PBB. The PRB currently exists within PPB, and therefore believe it is reasonable to instead add an additional member from the CRC, which operates independent of the PPB. So I will read the amendment. Amending section 35B 010 subsection B2 to read, a nominating committee comprised of members as listed below shall solicit applications for CBPA and shall refer potential CBPA members to City Council based on a recommendation of a majority of nominating committee members. The initial nominating committee shall be as stated below, except in lieu of subparagraph A. Below, there shall be 2 members of the Citizen Review Committee, and in lieu of subparagraph B. Below, council shall each appoint 1 member.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Rubio proposes Rubio 1, Commissioner Ryan seconds. We'll keep it open until after public testimony. You have a second?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm introducing the Second Amendment to address concerns surrounding the bias language within the CBPA membership section. With this amendment, I am seeking to align the language that currently exists in the U.S. DOJ settlement agreement. I'm also seeking alignment internally in the code, as this language is also used in a subsequent section related to resignation and removal from CBPA. Again, both quote the terms of the settlement agreement. This is an important amendment to address concerns about where the bias language comes from, as it is embedded in the settlement agreement itself.
I second. Commissioner Rubio proposes, Rubio 2, Commissioner Gonzalez seconds. Colleagues, are there any further amendments we want to put on the table? Seeing none, with that, we can move forward with the presentation of this item. I see we have many incredible representatives from council offices as well as the city attorney's office. So why don't we begin? I think Stephanie Howard from my office, you're up first. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And we'll let you take it from here.
Thank you,
Good
Mayor.
afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. My name for the record is Stephanie Howard. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as the Mayor's Director of Community Safety. I'm pleased to be here today with my colleagues from council offices and the City Attorney's Office to present this item for your consideration. As you know, in 2020, Portlanders voted to approve amendments to the city's charter, and in doing so, called for the creation of a new community-led police oversight system. Later that year, City Council created the Police Accountability Commission, or PAC, to make recommendations for what that new system could look like. The PAC, a group of volunteer community members, worked diligently for months to develop recommendations to inform Council's decisions about the new system. I know we are all appreciative of their work. On September 21st this year, Council voted to accept the PAC's report, which started the clock on a short deadline for the city's next steps. I'll take a moment to note here that the code package before you today adopts the PAC's recommended names for the volunteer board and its staff organization. The board would be called the Community Board for Police Accountability, and you'll hear it referred to throughout our presentation as the CBPA or the board. The staff to support that board would be called the Office of Community-Based Police Accountability, and you'll hear us refer to that as the OCPA or the office. Under the settlement agreement with the Department of Justice, the city is required to present proposed amendments to the settlement agreement and proposed city code language within 60 days of receipt of the PAC's recommendations, which brings us together today. Importantly, I want to make it clear that Council is not voting today on whether to adopt and implement this code language. Today's resolution seeks authority for the City Attorney's Office to put forward this proposed code package for discussion with the Department of Justice and eventually a fairness hearing for amendments to the settlement agreement. To meet the city's 60-day deadline, Council and legal staff conducted an in-depth review of the charter, the PAC's recommendations, and applicable law, all with the overarching goal of putting forward a proposed code package that would achieve two objectives. First, to fulfill the will of the voters, and second, to create a system of employee discipline that can withstand legal challenge and would result in discipline imposed by the board being upheld. Today, we'll review this proposed code package and discuss its alignment with these important mandates. We'll begin our presentation with an overview of how this proposed code package aims to fulfill the mission and budget requirements of the charter. We'll then review the charter requirements for board membership and how the proposed code package reflects those requirements. We will move to a discussion of the requirements for board director and staff, followed by how the code package enshrines the board's exercise of independent judgment, powers, and duties. Finally, we'll discuss the vote before council today, opportunity for additional community input, and what procedural next steps may look like. And with that, I will hand it over to my colleague, Angela Rico.
Angela, before you begin, I just want to give everybody a heads up. We currently have about 65 people signed up for public testimony. That's about 2.5 hours of public testimony. I want to make sure we don't lose our quorum. So we will be keeping public testimony to 2 minutes each today. So please, if you need to amend your remarks, take the time to do that while the presentation is going on. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Stephanie. For the record, my name is Angela Rico. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as Commissioner Carmen Rubio's Senior Policy Advisor. We want to begin by grounding us on the mission of the Charter and the mission that grounded us in reviewing the code package. Pursuant to Charter Section 2-1001, the mission of the City of Portland Community Police Oversight Board is to independently investigate Portland Police Bureau sworn employees and supervisors thereof promptly, fairly, impartially, to impose discipline as determined appropriate by the board, and to make recommendations regarding police practices, policies, and directives to the Portland Police Bureau, and with a primary focus on community concerns. For future reference, we define the Portland Police Bureau sworn employees and supervisors thereof as covered employees. So as we go forward in this presentation, please keep in mind that when we say covered employees, that is encompassing of both sworn employees and their supervisors. This mission was what voters wanted the City Council to implement, and are also embedded in the two overarching goals that Stephanie mentioned: to ensure fidelity to the Charter Amendment and to ensure that the decisions of discipline made by the board are upheld. In implementing this mission, we drafted a code language that was guided by those two principles and held in place the principle of community-led investigations and the community-led disciplinary decisions. The voters of Portland also supported that this board and the staff would have funding to carry out its mission by including the provision that the funding for this work shall be proportional to not less than 5% of the Police Bureau's annual operational budget. The charter language is embedded in this code section 35B.030. I will now pass it to my colleague, Darian Jones.
Thank you, Angela, and good afternoon, Council. For the record, my name is Darian Jones. I use he, they pronouns, and I serve the city as Commissioner Ryan's Senior Policy Director for Arts, Culture, and Equity. I'm honored to join my colleagues today, some of whom I've been working alongside for more than 2 years on public safety issues, including this one. My focus today is on the charter requirements for board membership and how our proposed code reflects those requirements. The charter, as endorsed by Portland voters, mandates that the Community Board for Police Accountability represents diverse communities, especially those impacted by systemic racism or those experiencing mental illness, addiction, or alcoholism. The charter further stipulates that the CBPA restricts membership to current and former law enforcement employees and immediate family members of current law enforcement employees. The proposed code today honors the voters' directive and clarifies the term immediate family to reflect parents, spouses, domestic partners, children, and siblings, while excluding estranged family members. It also integrates language from the DOJ settlement to guarantee that members of the CBPA are impartial, unbiased, and capable of objective decision-making. It ensures membership is restricted from any individual who has an objective demonstration of bias for or against the police. The code package also guarantees that the CBPA retains its chartered authority to independently execute all legal responsibilities and power. Furthermore, the code package safeguards the CBPA's autonomy by prohibiting any interference from the mayor, city council, auditor, city administrators, their deputies, as well as city departments and administrative agencies in the board's independent decision-making process. Next slide, please. The Community Board for Police Accountability will be composed of 21 appointed members. The number was determined by the review of the last 12 years of police discipline data and will be discussed later in the presentation. Additionally, the CBPA will include 6 alternate appointees that will be appointed by council from a pool of qualified candidates. Selection of CBPA members will be conducted by a community-led nominating committee consisting of 2 community members from each police representative, and for each police representative, there will be 2 community representatives. The committee will include, as Commissioner Rubio proposed today, 2 members from the Citizen Review Committee, 1 community member from each council district designated by their respective council members, 1 representative appointed by the Chief of Police, 1 representative from the Portland Police Association, 1 representative from Portland Police Command Officers Association. The nominating committee's recommendations for the CBPA members will be put forward for council approval. I will now pass the microphone to my colleague Stephanie Howard to speak about the professional staff of the board. Stephanie?
When reviewing the charter and proposed code structure for staff, it's important to be mindful of the difference between the board and the office. Again, the board is comprised of community members, volunteers appointed by council who review investigations, make disciplinary decisions, and put forward policy recommendations. The office is comprised of professional staff hired by the director to conduct investigations for board review and provide administrative support for the board's operations. Charter requires that the board hire a director to manage professional administrative staff and investigators and make operational and administrative decisions. Consistent with that mandate, the proposed code provides that the director is appointed by, reports to, and serves at the pleasure of the board. The OCPA staff will be hired by and report to the director. The staff will conduct intakes, investigations, and support the board in carrying out its duties. And this proposed code also ensures that staff are hired as classified employees to ensure they enjoy appropriate employment protections. While the PAC recommendation excluded law enforcement from eligibility as staff, the voter-approved charter did not. This was an important distinction to make in the proposed code before you today. As a former public defender and law enforcement oversight monitor, I can personally attest to the value of law enforcement experience in conducting these types of administrative investigations. As an example, one of the best investigators I ever worked with at the public defender's office was a former police officer who ultimately determined that it was not the type of investigative work he wanted to do. He then specifically sought to become a public defender investigator, and he was hired despite reservations about his prior career. As many of you may know, public defenders and police officers are not exactly known for being great friends. However, to my and other defenders' pleasant surprise, it didn't take long to see that his law enforcement expertise was a tremendous asset. He was able to provide insight and advice that strengthened defense investigations and served many, many clients in defending their constitutional rights. To be clear, today's proposed code does not require the director to hire former law enforcement as staff. It simply allows them the ability to do so if they believe it's appropriate. One additional note regarding professional staff of the board is that the proposed code included one of the key recommendations from the PAC regarding complaint navigators. This proposed code recognizes the tremendous value of complaint navigators to the value they offer to complainants and to OCPA staff. Navigators can offer a single point of contact to support complainants in understanding the process and ensuring that they're apprised of the status of their complaint. This assistance can help provide a more positive experience for complainants and result in an environment that engenders greater understanding, facilitates sustained engagement, and ultimately better outcomes for all stakeholders. Finally, the proposed code includes many of the PAC's training recommendations for OCPA staff. These training requirements are critical to ensure staff are prepared to conduct robust and durable investigations upon which the board will make disciplinary decisions. This code included important requirements for observational training, including ride-alongs with PPB officers and completion of PPB's Community Academy. Not only is there value in learning from firsthand observation, but this engagement is also required by the DOJ settlement agreement for community members who participate in the disciplinary process. In sum, the proposed code aims to remain aligned with the voter-approved charter without inhibiting the authority of the new board and office to staff itself and adapt as needed to be successful. Turning now to the board's exercise of independent judgment, I'll hand it over to Heidi.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Good to see you all today. As an important aspect, I use she, her pronouns, and I am the chief deputy, one of the chief deputies at the city attorney's office. So an important aspect of the voter-approved charter language is the assurance that the CBPA will exercise independent judgment in performing all of their legally assigned duties. In defining what independent judgment is, we started with the recommended language from the PAC. We then added to it, making it clear that independent means free from outside control, and that judgment means the ability to make considered decisions. We also added to the voter-approved charter language that notes that this exercise of independent judgment is free from interference, as Darian mentioned earlier, interference by the mayor, city council, auditor, and city departments, bureaus, and other administrative agencies. But we also added to that the city administrator and the deputies of the city administrator. They were not in existence when this language went to the voters in 2020. The proposal before you codifies the essential elements of the oversight system as approved by the voters. The charter, just to talk about the framework of this, the charter you should think of as the city's constitution. It provides for an overarching requirements and is the floor and ceiling of the oversight system. The charter is kind of the be-all and the end-all of authority. Underneath the charter is city code. So if we think of a upside-down funnel, you start with the charter up at the top, and then from a legal perspective, the authority then flows downwards. So city code is next, and it provides more detail about how the oversight system is structured and how it should operate. Underneath that are administrative rules. Administrative rules, for example, we have our human resources administrative rules, and we have a process of adopting those administrative rules under current code, either by the chief administrative officer or by city council. Under the new framework of the new government, administrative rules will be adopted by the city administrator. And at the bottom of this sort of rule-making authority are policies and procedures, and we often see those currently where you see bureaus and offices adopting the policies and procedures for the day-to-day operations within. So under this proposal before you today, the CBPA will develop their own administrative rules to recommend for adoption by the city administrator. And with this, we wanted to ensure it allowed for a more nimble process. So there were a number of things we removed from the code recommendation from the PAC and put it into a document that you all can refer to the board for their consideration for an administrative rule, just thinking it would be more appropriate for them, and also granting them the authority and the nimbleness to create this brand new structure that we have never seen before. I next want to start talking about the powers of the board, and again, this is enshrined in our charter. The powers under the board are delineated as the power to investigate, the power to subpoena, the power to compel documents, and to issue discipline, and that's up to and including termination. And I am now going to turn it over to Jackson to walk you through the investigative process.
Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler and members of council. For the record, my name is Jackson Paul. I serve the city as a policy advisor for Commissioner Mingus Mapps in the areas of transportation and public safety. So this code defines an administrative investigation. The investigation is conducted by the OCPA as an employment investigation. That is, an investigation by an employer into the conduct of an employee for the purposes of determining if there have been any violations to that employer's rules. This clarification was made in response to concerns raised by the city auditor, who indicated that the language in the PAC's initial draft was too broad in this area and would overlap with the jurisdictions of both the Ombudsman's office as well as the Elections Office. These investigations will be initiated by and conducted by the OCPA, which is the office that, in part, serves as the investigative body for this newly appointed board. We strongly agree with the recommendations of the PAC as they pertain to the standards these investigations should be held to. This code package here today states that all investigations must be undertaken in a manner that is ethical, independent, thorough, timely, and impartial. These standards are all in alignment with and even expand on what was passed by the voters. Under our current system, appeals are designed to inject community voices into the investigative process. Under the current system, CRC is deferential to PPB's determination. Under this new process, community voices have been moved to the forefront of the decision-making effort. With the assistance of a complaint navigator, The complainant will have the opportunity to review how the allegations was put forward and whether or not they were sustained or not sustained. Here, the complainant is also provided with the opportunity to introduce any information into the investigative process that they feel is pertinent. This will be then shared directly with the board. I will now turn it over to Nick from Commissioner Gonzalez's office.
Thank you, Jackson. Mayor, Commissioners, for the record, I'm Nick Coffey. I'm a policy advisor in Commissioner Gonzalez's office. Continuing with board powers, we maintained from the Police Accountability Commission recommendations that the board has the power to compel evidence, statements, and access to all police records and data. For example, body-worn cameras from city employees, including PPB. All city employees, including PPB, must answer all questions completely and truthfully, and failure to do so may result in discipline up to and including termination. This deviates from our existing system where the independent police review is dependent on a police bureau employee to direct other police bureau employees to participate in investigations and truthfully and completely answer all questions on pain of discipline. In addition, the OCPA investigator will investigate all uses of deadly force and in-custody deaths, and now will compel covered employee statements within 48 hours of any use of deadly force or in-custody death. This was previously done by PPB. I will now turn it over to Lisa.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Lisa Rogers. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a deputy attorney in the city attorney's office. Once the investigation is submitted to the CBPA, a panel of the CBPA will review the investigation. This panel will determine if the covered employee engaged in misconduct and either find the allegation sustained or not sustained. If the allegation is not sustained by the community panel, then the investigation is complete. If the allegation is sustained, the panel proposes discipline based on binding discipline rules. OCPA staff then issue a letter that notifies the covered employee of the panel's findings and their proposed discipline. After the covered employee has had an opportunity to consider the information in the letter, the panel reconvenes and holds a due process review meeting. This is a chance for the covered employee to provide any additional information they believe was not previously considered, such as further investigatory information or any mitigating information they want to share with the panel. After this, the panel makes a final decision on discipline, and the OCPA staff send out a final letter imposing that discipline. The proposed code provides for transparency in the community-led oversight process by requiring the board to hold open public meetings and also adopting the PAC's recommendation that the CBPA publish at least annually a written report that shall be presented during a public meeting. Consistent with state public meetings law, when considering employee discipline, CBPA panels will deliberate in executive session unless a covered employee requests that deliberation occur in an open session. However, the CBPA shall make all final decisions regarding employee discipline in an open public meeting. Until a final decision is made about whether or not to discipline a police officer, the state law on public records prohibits disclosure of the investigation except in rare circumstances. Read together, these two laws, the Public Meetings Law and the Public Records Law, limit the transparency that can occur to the broader public. But this is balanced by the voter-approved charter amendments that ensure that a community board is making disciplinary decisions. I will now turn it back to Heidi.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm going to discuss the appeal process. If the investigator administratively closes the matter, so doesn't perform a full investigation, doesn't intake and determines that the facts that are alleged by the complainant are not a policy violation, then they can administratively close it. We then added in an appeal to the OCPA director. By including this appeal, we're doing it earlier in the process than the PAC's recommendation, and we did this to avoid certain legal issues. First, the PAC's appeal had a community panel of the CBPA reviewing the work of another community panel of the CBPA. The concern with this is it really presents the likelihood of conflict between panel members, and that can negatively impact the CBA's ability to act as one succinct body. It also further risks the likelihood of two panels coming to different conclusions, which increases the likelihood of the discipline being overturned in arbitration. So by putting it earlier in the process, we're helping us enforce any disciplinary decisions and uphold those as they are made. For investigations that do move forward, upon completion of that investigation, the OCPA investigator will notify the complainant, and they will tell the complainant how they've contextualized or framed the allegations, and whether they're recommending to the board that the allegations are sustained or not sustained. Under the proposal before you today, the complainant can provide written input and they can have the support of the complaint navigator in submitting that written input. And that will be part of the entire investigation file that gets sent to the board for the board's determination. The written input can also include an impact statement if the complainant wishes to provide one. This proposal incorporates the process so that the board can hear from the complainant, hear their perspective about how the allegation was contextualized or framed, and share whether they agree or disagree with that. It also allows them to provide input on the recommendation, by the investigator to the board of whether to sustain the allegation or not sustain the allegation. And finally, if the complainant feels that there were questions that weren't asked during the investigation, or if they weren't provided a sufficient opportunity to share what they wanted to share, this is another opportunity for them to include that information in this written input, and all of that will be available to the board. So we provided this in lieu of the PAC's recommendation for a hearing. Why? First of all, a hearing creates a due process issue, which will present significant challenges to the city in upholding this discipline that the board imposes on officers. We want to allow for input at the appropriate time of the process. The decision makers need to understand the investigation. They need to provide due process for the covered employee, and they're required by the charter to make a decision that is prompt, fair, and impartial. To stand true to these tenets of the charter of prompt, fair, and impartial, and to ensure that the discipline from the board is something we can uphold against a challenge, we removed the hearing recommended by the PAC and instead included this written input that I've explained to you today. We think that this is the best way to ensure we meet the voters' intent of having a community-led board and also providing a disciplinary process that we can uphold later. I'm going to turn it back over to Stephanie now.
The charter provided the board with the authority to make policy and directive recommendations to the Police Bureau and City Council. The proposed code before you is identical to the language in the voter-approved charter, with one additional requirement, that the development of policy recommendations, procedures, or practices will incorporate equity and anti-racist lenses. Consistent with the charter, this code package outlines the process of making and implementing a board recommendation. Specifically, it requires the chief of police to respond in writing to the board no later than 60 days after a recommendation is made. If a recommendation is rejected or the chief does not respond within 60 days, this code ensures the board can bring its recommendation to City Council for a vote. Finally, the code also ensures that the implementation of adopted or imposed recommendations is consistent with bargaining and training requirements. In sum, this proposed code protects the board's ability to make recommendations, and it ensures that it will receive timely responses. Back to Heidi.
I'm now going to go over the board's duties, and these are incorporated in our charter. What you see on the screen right now is the charter language, where the board has the authority to investigate all in-custody deaths and all uses of deadly force, complaints of force resulting in injury, complaints of discrimination, complaints of violation of federal and state constitutional rights, and delegates to the board the authority to investigate other allegations of misconduct as they see fit or as mandated by city code. So how did we enunciate this in code? The proposal before you today actually expands on the charter to include the following. First, the full board will review all in-custody deaths and all use of deadly force cases. Although the charter language says that all complaints of force resulting in injury shall be heard by the board, we actually expanded that to all complaints of excessive force, not just ones resulting in injury. In addition to the other charter requirements, it adds allegations including negligent discharge of a firearm, bias-based policing, officers' failure to identify themselves, and in order to get allegations as the board deems fit before them to set up a process so that people know where to go, we included that they will bring a code amendment to council, which you will be required to accept, given the charter language, to add any other type of misconduct allegation that the board deems fit. So the next steps, if council approves the resolution today, the next steps are as follows. For the next 30 days, we have a public feedback period, and on the screen, you'll see an email address, and for any of you who cannot see it, it is DOJ-comments, COMMENTS, at portlandoregon.gov. So for the next 30 days, that's an opportunity for folks to provide additional feedback on the code recommendations, as we do recognize that there's 28 pages of code language. Following that will be a period of negotiation with the United States Department of Justice for the amendments to the settlement agreement that we have between the city and the United States, as well as this code language. Finally, we will also comply with any bargaining obligations that may exist. If, after all of this, there are no material changes to the amendments as authorized by council, then we will request a fairness hearing before Federal Court Judge Simon. If, on the other hand, there are material changes and what we end up with is not in a form substantially similar to what is authorized by you today, assuming you do authorize that, then we will return to council for you to consider any of those amendments to the code before we would move forward with any court proceeding. If the court approves the amendments, then council will have 21 days to adopt final code amendments. And thereafter, under the DOJ settlement agreement, the city has 1 year to implement the new code language and for the oversight system to start taking new complaints. This concludes our presentation, and we are all available to answer any questions that you may have for us. Thank you.
We're good.
Great. Colleagues, at this point, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask? I have a couple. First of all, the language sees fit, as the board sees fit. How is that different from what currently exists around the disciplinary process or around the policy recommendation process?
Do you mean how is it different from what?
What currently exists with our current
system?
System, correct.
Under our current system, we have the police review board. When there's a recommendation to sustain an allegation that an officer violated a city rule or PPB directive, then there's a police review board that has 1 community member and 4 other voting members who are members of the police bureau, except 1 other member who's a member of the independent police review. From there, those recommendations that the police review board makes a recommended vote on whether to sustain or not sustain the allegations and what level of discipline to impose if there is a sustained allegation. That recommendation goes on to the chief's office and the chief makes the final decision. Within that, if a complainant opts to appeal to the Citizen Review Committee, they can go through that process. And if the Citizen Review Committee agrees with the chief's recommended decision in the case, then the case completes with the chief's office. If, on the other hand, the Citizen Review Committee recommends a different outcome, they send that recommendation to the chief of police, who makes a decision about whether to make changes or not to make changes. If at the conclusion of that, the CRC is not happy with the outcome, they also have the ability to bring it before council for a final decision-making authority. Under this new process, this is the cases that go to the community board for police accountability. All those cases will go through an entirely community-led board. So the members of the board are all community members appointed by council, by city council, and they will, and then their office staff, the director who they appoint, and their staff perform the investigation, rather than here where sometimes independent police review performs it and sometimes internal affairs at PPB performs it. So that's one way it's significantly different. And then another real difference that exists in this, in the charter and in the code as proposed, is that the final decision about whether to sustain or not sustain the allegations that are made against an officer are done by the community board, a panel of them. We've divided into panels so that they can perform all the work that will be before them.
Great. And then, in looking in the documents, when you say the resolution authorizes the city attorney to negotiate this in a form substantially similar to Exhibit B, what do you mean by that? What are you referencing?
That means that the proposed code language that's before you today is if when we receive the public feedback over the 30 days, there's some idea in there that makes sense. And if it doesn't make a substantial change, if it's still substantially similar to what you've already authorized, then we can just make those minor changes. However, or when we talk to the Department of Justice, or if we negotiate to the extent we're bargaining with the union, if there's some additional changes, that if they are not material changes, then we can make them. So long as it remains in basically what you've authorized, then it's fine. But if we're making material changes, things that really change the intent of what you wanted to happen, we will come back to you. You have to approve that.
I haven't heard this one in ages. It's like, it's an old home day. Hey, so I also had a question about what you described as the public process. Is it in charter that the final decision must be made in a public setting? Is that part of the charter?
No, that's actually part of state law.
So that currently exists, is that correct? Or is it because it's a public body?
It's because it's a public body, and the public body cannot make final decisions in executive session.
Okay, so, and therefore the people on this committee, just full disclosure, they will be subject to public disclosure laws as well, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and so obviously training and information is going to be important. I know it rubs some people the wrong way to hear that this process seems somewhat backward. Here we are coming to City Council. We're obviously going to have the opportunity for testimony, but then there's 30 days for the public to comment. And I think people are maybe wondering, why is this such a fast-tracked, truncated process? Could you explain why that is the case?
Yes, so under the settlement agreement with the United States, we made changes to it April of 2022, so about a year and a half ago. And within that, we enshrined the community board for police accountability, the charter language, and set up a process because the DOJ wants to ensure that we do things in a timely manner. So what they said was the Police Accountability Commission had 18 months to come up with a recommendation for the code language. Once that was received by council, which occurred on September 21st, council then had 60 days to propose both amendments to the settlement agreement, because currently under the settlement agreement, we have independent police review and other things enshrined in there, and that will need to change to allow for the community-based, community board for police accountability. And then also the code amendments. So council was required under the agreement to bring this forward within 60 days. 60 days ended next Tuesday. And we had to file this last Tuesday. So that left us about 6 weeks to get something together. So we took the 96 pages from the Police Accountability Commission and worked hard to condense that. Unfortunately, it didn't leave a lot of time for that to be released to the public prior to last week. And therefore, I think there was a real interest among council staff to ensure that we provided some additional opportunity for community feedback. That's the purpose of the 30-day feedback period.
Okay, very, very good, thank you. That's all my questions. I don't know if anybody else has any questions at this particular juncture. Very good. Commissioner Rubio, go ahead.
I have a quick question. So Heidi, can you please discuss how much of the PAC's work informed and was integral into the final project that we see today?
It was essential. We took their great work and used as much of it as we could, and the changes that we made were either one, as I described the charter up here, the code and the administrative rules, was some of the things that they had in code we just felt were more appropriate for the board to be able to decide and not have them have to go through the process of amending city code, which is much more involved. So that was one way that we changed it. And then the second way was just when there were significant legal issues involved with the recommendation, as I described the hearing, and where it would put us in a position where we would either A, be exceedingly likely to violate state law, or B, or both, it would threaten our ability to uphold the discipline. The likelihood of an arbitrator overturning it in those instances was very high. And so we really wanted what the board decides and imposes as discipline to be upheld.
So a lot of those pieces of, or recommendations are not going away, they're just moving into a different arena to be considered.
Yeah, we actually have, I think, about 27 pages of recommendations from the Police Accountability Commission for your consideration to pass on to the board once they're established, and they could look at putting those into administrative rules.
Thanks. And I just have one more question. So what was originally recommended was 33 members, and now it's 21. Can you talk about how you arrived at that number?
Yes. We obtained 12 years worth of data from both independent police review and from internal affairs at PPB on the number of total intakes they had in each year over 12 years, and then the number of cases that were actually opened. And the average over that 12-year period was approximately 70 cases per year. We felt like having a 3-person panel would enable this board to work efficiently. And so with 70 cases and 3 members, if each panel had 10 cases per year, that would make 7 panels of 3. So we just multiplied 7 by 3 and got to 21 members for the full board. That way, so each panel will hear approximately 10 cases per year. I think that'll end up being, an estimate of a couple of meetings per month. In addition to that will be the full board meetings where they'll talk about policies and administrative rules, community engagement that we've put into the code and things of that nature that are part of the mission of the oversight system.
And if for some reason, if there was a need or additional need to expand, would the board have the flexibility to add members at a later date if they determine that's what they needed?
They can certainly come back to council.
Okay, there's an avenue to do that.
And I think the language we included was not less than 21 members.
Great, thank you.
So.
Good. Anything else, colleagues? How many folks do we have signed up, Keelan?
We have 66 people.
66, 2 minutes each, name for the record. Thanks for the presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you. First up, we have Dan Handelman, Portland Cop Watch, followed by Philip Chachka and Mark Porras, Portland Cop Watch.
Hello, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Dan Handelman. I use he, him pronouns. I'm speaking today as both a member of Portland Cop Watch and a former member of the PAC. When I walked downtown last Friday on the same day this watered-down, inadequate, and frankly insulting version of the proposed code for the new Oversight Board was released, there were workers putting the finishing touches on glass outside Pioneer Place Mall. These were the last windows that had been covered with George Floyd graffiti, a fitting metaphor for a city where it appears black lives no longer matter. Someone said the city's proposal is based on what the PAC proposed. That's like claiming a pile of pottery shards are based on a vase. Maybe little pieces look like they used to, but it no longer holds water. I do not agree with every decision by the PAC, but I will stand by every word of its report, which was accepted by consensus among the very different people sitting on the commission. My overall analysis, the city attorney's plan guts many of the provisions for transparency, community empowerment, and independence. The requirement for the board to get permission from city council to expand the list of policies in their jurisdiction to investigate is in conflict with the charter. The new draft literally pulled out the word transparency from the PAC plan and only uses it to say the board members must commit to the city's value of transparency. The PAC did its homework and realized most hearings will not be public, even though that's one of the best traits of the CRC. Our plan used state laws to say officers can opt for an open meeting, and they should because most findings go in their favor when they appear at CRC hearings. We also wrote the board can decide when an open hearing is in the public interest, an exception to the public records laws, to be considered on a case-by-case basis. Yet the city attorney pulled out that ability. CRC's appeal hearings are part of a 40-year history. Portland's board, like CRC, was limited to hearing appeals. The PAC preserved that ability and proposed adding appeals for deadly force cases. Instead of honoring that long-time concern, the city attorney pulled that out again. Moreover, the DOJ agreement includes CRC appeals, and that does, just because you're dismissing that paragraph, it doesn't remove the city's obligation to follow those rules. As a former member of PAC, I join my colleagues in requesting a public meeting between the city attorney and the former members of the PAC to walk through the changes and allow us to offer meaningful feedback. The city attorney should then revise the plan before council votes.
Thank you.
Philip Chachka.
Hi, my name is Philip Chachka. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a member of Portland Cop Watch and a victim of police brutality. I attended many of the meetings of the PAC and am extremely disappointed in the changes to the recommendations. The PAC sought the city's input, or the PAC sought the city's input during their 20-month tenure, yet the city waited until after the PAC was disbanded to work behind closed doors to hack the recommendations to pieces. There's a 30-day comment period, but like Mr. Handelman already said, the resolution needs to require the city attorney to return to council for you to vote on the revised version, one that looks more like what the PAC originally wrote. For board membership, the city added language to ban candidates who demonstrate bias for or against law enforcement. This restriction could be used as to ban any individual who has ever written "I support police" on social media or who has criticized police misconduct. The PAC already considered the effect of bias. Their plan states, quote, members who are capable of making fair and impartial decisions based on evidence presented to them in an environment where controversy is common. Boulder, Colorado had a clause similar to the city's addition about board members not having a bias for or against police. That clause led to turmoil and litigation. Boulder eventually changed their charter to remove that section and replace it with very similar wording to what the PAC proposed. The city seems to be trying to find ways around the clear intent of the city charter, which is to make sure the police do not continue to review other police. There is a restriction against officers sitting on the board, so the city created the loophole by allowing the police bureau and 2 police unions to each nominate members to the board. This undermines board independence. The city attorney cut out mention of homeless people on the board as people disproportionately affected by the police. They deserve representation.
Mark Porras. Go ahead, Mark.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Great. Hello, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Mark Porras, use he, him pronouns, have kids in Portland Public Schools, and I'm a member of Portland Cop Watch. Before jumping back into specifics, the city attorney you're trusting to write this code also supported a statement about a man pushed down by police multiple times, causing a broken arm and a $300,000 police brutality settlement claiming that the man fell. The same city attorney's office okayed the cruel anti-camping ban that's been put on hold because a judge agreed with the argument that on its face it might violate people's constitutional rights. Back to where Mr. Chachka left off about board membership, the city is requiring people to go on a police ride-along. The charter says, and PAC's plan supports, that members of the board should include, but not exclusively, people who have experienced systemic racism and those who have experienced mental illness, addiction, or alcoholism. Such persons are unlikely to want to spend any time at all locked in a police car. We remind you that during COVID, council lifted the requirement for CRC and police review board members to go on ride-alongs, and both groups continue to hear cases of alleged misconduct. This provision does not belong in code. It's also not clear why the city attorney wants to cut board size down from 33 members to 21. These members are not being paid as full-time employees, and as council and many community members know, the budget will be roughly $12 million. Volunteers will not be able to keep up with the workload, and a larger board is needed. Similarly, the city should not cut the size of hearings panels down from 5 members to 3. This takes away the ability to have a diverse panel and requires all 3 members to be present. The current police review board requires 5 to 7 members with a majority as quorum. Instead of assigning a complaint navigator from the time a person first contacts the new office to file a complaint, the city attorney wants the advocates to be provided no later than when the office agrees to fully investigate their complaint. This ignores, as does most of this proposed code, the point of view of the person who feels that a City of Portland employee armed with many weapons violated their rights. The PAC's extensive research didn't turn up any other system in the US that provides a complaint navigator up front. The city has a chance to move forward and evolve our existing system into a cutting-edge oversight board that can be replicated throughout the country. Instead, this seems like a big step backwards. Listen to the public, have a new draft written that follows the PAC's recommendations more closely, and require the city attorney to return with a new draft. Thanks.
Next up, we have Tim Pitts, followed by Patrick Patterson and Kevin Gwynn.
Welcome. Thank you. Mayor and Commissioners, I'm Tim Pitts. I'm a 20-year Portlander, and I own a real estate agency in Northeast Portland. I am concerned about rising crime, and at the same time, I am outraged that we waste millions of dollars on lawsuits against a police force that has been repeatedly accused and found to be guilty of abusing their authority. I think we need an accountable police force to have a safer city, and I applied for the Police Accountability Commission, and all 5 of you agreed to put me on the commission. The PAC held 128 public meetings and 23 community engagement sessions. We wrote 96 pages of city code to structure the new board, which you sliced into 27. This was not minor changes that were made, and this was not because what we submitted was illegal. In fact, the city paid an outside attorney tens of thousands of dollars to review every word we wrote before it was submitted. We held a work session with you in May that ended 30 minutes early because you had so few questions for us. Why didn't you take that chance to guide us? We invited the Police Commanding Officers Association to our meeting multiple times, and they canceled on us last minute. They would not give us 20 minutes to help craft the proposal, and you want them to nominate people to the board. People say that the city of Portland doesn't work right now, and this is a great example of why. Elected officials ask citizens to spend thousands of hours volunteering, and then you ignore our work when we're done. I join other former members of the PAC in asking that you do not vote on this today. I believe other deadlines have been missed with the settlement agreement, and this one could have an extension too. I request a public meeting with the city attorney and the former members of the PAC so that we can have the opportunity to provide meaningful feedback from our 1.5 to 2 years of work that we did on this matter. The city attorney should then revise the plan before you vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick Patterson. Kevin Gwynn. Kevin, you're muted.
I'm working on it.
There you are.
Hi. Thanks, everybody, for letting me talk. I'm Kevin Gwynn. I live in Portland downtown. These seem like really well-considered amendments to the charter and to this particular issue. I urge all of you to use common sense, to use the evidence of your eyes, and to advance these amendments and move forward. We need this to be an independent review and not an advocacy situation. And I think that you've done great work here. And again, please continue forward. This is great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Angie Tomlinson.
Hey. Hello, I'm Angie Tomlinson. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, we hear you.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm Angie Tomlinson. I've lived in Portland for almost 30 years, raised 2 children in public schools with many years of PTA and community sports, and I'm an environmental scientist / engineer. I'm not an activist, I'm a scientist. For the last 2 years, I've given thousands of hours of my family's time volunteering for the Portland Police Accountability Commission, made up of the community members, listening to the community, and creating a system of community oversight for the police board. I believe that all the citizens deserve to feel safe and protected by police. But as Judge Simon says, you can't have public safety without police accountability. The edits from City Council and the City Attorney to the Oversight Board proposal remove the transparency, community empowerment, and independence of the board. Passing the City Council edited document as is currently will create more distrust where trust and healing is so desperately needed. As a former member of the PAC, I join my colleagues in asking that you do not vote on this today. I request a public meeting between the City Attorney and the former members of the PAC to review the changes and allow us to offer meaningful feedback, and the City Attorney should then revise the plan considering the impact to our community before your vote. Thank you for allowing me to give testimony.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Brian Owendoff, followed by Kristen Olson and Jenny York.
Welcome.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for your time. I'm Brian Owendoff. I've lived and worked in the city of Portland for the past 15 years and have had all 3 of my children go through Portland Public Schools. The highest duties of government, and therefore police, are to safeguard freedom, to preserve life and property, to protect the constitutional rights of citizens, and maintain respect for the rule of law by proper enforcement thereof, and thereby to preserve the democratic process for our constitutional republic. During the heightened emotions of the racial justice movement in Portland surrounding the death of George Floyd, Joanne Hardesty pushed forward city charter changes to create new police oversight board, even though there were already 3 police oversight committees that were performing the oversight function. Many have realized that the committee tasked with creating the new oversight board was staffed with quite a few people significantly biased against the police. From the committee, the city received 96 pages of proposed city code changes that would be punitive towards legitimate policing and cause even more hiring and retention problems for PPB. The city attorney has pared down these changes to 27 pages and included such common sense measures as prohibiting board members with a bias against law enforcement, reducing the board from 33 to 21 members, including a nominating committee with police representation, and requiring members to receive instruction on the Police Bureau's training and policies. The ordinance will be appropriate if there were a change in the composition of the oversight to ensure broader representation. I have asked in September that the council significantly modify the PAC's recommendations as they were out of sync with most law-abiding, tax-paying Portlanders. At minimum, there needs to be significant changes to align with attracting and retaining more police officers. Based on the revisions, the current draft is more prompt, fair, and impartial to ensure accountability for taxpayer dollars and benefit all Portlanders and Portland businesses whose taxes fund our local government. While not perfect, it is better. Let's not let perfect get in the way of better. In my opinion, this is actually one of the best city councils we've had in my 15 years in Portland, and I applaud all your hard work on this. It would be easy to leave and not have to deal with this. This is setting the stage so that our city can recover. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Kristen Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners, for hearing our testimony today. I agree with the previous testifier that this is one of the best city councils that we've had, and I appreciate all of the work that you've done. My name is Kristen Olson. I own a small law firm here downtown. I live in the city of Portland with my young family. I'm actually here today to ask you, despite your hard work, that you send ballot measure 26217 back to the voters. You have the power to do this. I know that you do. And it's not undemocratic to take another vote on this. This city is very different than it was in 2020, as exhibited by the election of Rene Gonzalez, for example. And most Portlanders are not aware of the gravity of this vote today. There is very little civic education in this city about what this vote today will mean and about what will happen if City Council passes any version of the PAC's recommendations. In regard to the DOJ, they say that we need to have a policy. They're not saying that we need to have this policy. Mayor Wheeler, you nailed it when you asked why we would do this first and then open it up to public comment. There needs to be public comment in regard to this, and I'm not talking about PAC meetings, which I attended, which were scheduled many, many times at the last minute, not well publicized, and we need to have something that is far more publicized and something that is more open to the public with some sort of notice provided ahead of time. We rank 48th among the largest 50 cities in the United States in regard to the ratio of police officers to population. If you do not send this ballot measure back to the voters, it will continue to decimate our police force. And I know that you all know that because I know that you have all talked to officers and you've talked to people like Aaron Schmaltz, who's head of the police union. We know what happens when we do exotic things. We tried that in 2020, and we've seen the results of that. We are at a point where the wait for an emergency response has increased by nearly 200%. Police cannot respond to overdoses, let alone homicides. Please send the ballot measure back to the voters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jenny York. Okay. We'll move on to Carolyn Buppert, followed by Charlie Michelle Wesley and Kimiko Matsuda.
Thank you for being here.
Hello, I'm Carolyn Buppert. I'm president of the League of Women Voters of Portland. We have grave concerns about the city attorney's proposed code. We object to taking a vote on the resolution today before the 30-day comment period has ended. The public sent a clear message when it approved Measure 26217. Portlanders want a community-centered oversight system with the independence to do its job, free from political or police bureau interference. The city's proposed code undermines that goal. Furthermore, the proposal disrespects the Police Accountability Commission's careful work and will discourage other community members from participating in city boards and commissions. The League urges you to provide information about the reasoning behind the city's changes to the public. Then use the public's comments to draft a code and settlement agreement more reflective of community input, and then vote in mid-December. We expect the DOJ will overlook the 60-day deadline if the city uses the additional time to confer with the public. Here are some specific concerns about the city's proposed code. 1, the right to appeal non-sustained findings in misconduct cases has been eliminated. 2, 1/3 of the nominating committee for board membership will be police. 3, the board could no longer hold open hearings when it is in the public's interest. 4, when the board takes a public vote on findings and discipline, it cannot describe the nature of the allegations. 5, it does not require educating the community on the process. And 6, it limits the types of cases the new oversight agency can accept in spite of the fact that the city charter gives the board the authority to investigate other complaints as they see fit. Please delay voting until the end of the comment period. Thank you.
Charlie Michelle Wesley.
Yes, I'm Charlie Michelle Wesley, tribal member of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, former Police Accountability Commissioner. As a former member of the PAC, I join my colleagues in asking, at the very least, that you do not vote on this today. I request a public meeting between the city attorney and the former members of the PAC to review the changes and allow us to offer meaningful feedback. The city attorney should then revise the plan before you vote and provide the unadulterated copy of the document presented on September 21st, 2023. I say at the very least because so much more needs to be done to help this city heal from Portland policing. I'll speak to this myself and also read the words of Dr. Matthew Levine, professor, author, and racial justice expert. Today, I want to speak in favor of the original document proposed and unanimously approved by the Police Accountability Commission, the community members who were chosen to do this work, and against the anti-democratic changes of the city attorney and the city council. An astounding number of Portland community members voted for community oversight, not police oversight. Thousands of community members marched in the streets for racial justice. Throughout the PAC's process, they engaged with community to center their voices. For the city council and the city attorney to come in now and make changes is to silence and oppress those community voices. Those who share oppressing us are the reactionary voices who will keep Portland unsafe for marginalized communities. If you really want to protect and serve community, then you'll give the community real accountability. As for me, I don't even know what to say anymore. I've said it all from my heart and soul and lived experience. It feels like you simply don't care. And there's nothing I can say now except, why is it so hard for you to do the right, just, and equitable thing that we have pleaded for over and over and over? What is it going to take? Where is the humanity? Instead, you reject the gift of our voice. You reject that our lives matter while we try to get you to see that this decision is life and death for us, for my Black Indigenous grandson, for targeted community loved ones. Real police accountability is a matter of life and death. So at the very least, you all owe us the dignity and respect of keeping in mind at every step in this process that you're making a life and death decisions for this city's marginalized communities. Supporting deadly force and police influence in that is not ethical, but is continued attempted genocide for our people.
Kimiko Matsuda.
Hello, my name is Kimiko Matsuda. I use she, her pronouns. This is the first time I've done anything like this, so I'm a little nervous, so thank you.
We're glad you're here. Thank you.
I would like to encourage you to advance the work that was presented today. I represent marginalized communities. I was a small business owner in 2020 and 2021, and I found that the impact of safety and support from the police was really helpful. I had to close my business due to COVID challenges, and now I'm a part of Advocates for Downtown Portland. I work in the hospitality industry, and food and beverage is such an important part of the city's culture. And quite honestly, that food culture right now represents many, many marginalized, historically marginalized communities who are able to tell their story of their culture through their food and their celebration of hospitality. They are suffering so much right now in the downtown core. Guests are worried and afraid to come into downtown. I feel like the response that they're asking for is limited by this conversation that goes back and forth. I believe that what was presented today took a lot of consideration on many sides and many perspectives, and I appreciate the work that had been done. So because of those reasons, I hope that you do move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Debbie Iona, Brittany Vandersoem, and Angela Todd.
I'm Debbie Iona, a former Accountability Commission member. It is extremely disappointing that the city's proposal dismantles key provisions of the PAC's recommendation. It undermines our efforts to follow the voters' will and create a fair, community-centered oversight system worthy of public trust. Independent legal counsel hired by the city advised us and wrote the draft code. The PAC unanimously supported the final product. By scheduling a vote at the beginning of the public comment period, I realize you are trying to meet a DOJ deadline, but the city has missed deadlines before without consequence. In this case, I expect the DOJ would not object if you took the time to accept public input. I have a long history with police oversight, beginning with service on Mayor Katz's PIAC work group and regularly attending CRC meetings. If you adopt today's resolution, we will be headed for an oversight system that removes the right of complainants to appeal their cases and substantially reduces transparency and independence. Among other problems, the proposal limits the types of cases over which the board has authority and assigns the police bureau to investigate courtesy and truthfulness complaints. It places 3 law enforcement members, 2 of them from police unions, on the 9-member nominating committee. and takes away administrative rulemaking authority. More details are provided in my written testimony. I join my PAC colleagues in asking that at the very least, you do not vote on this today. I request a public meeting between the city attorney and the former PAC members to walk through the changes and allow us to offer meaningful feedback. The city attorney should take public input into consideration and revise the plan before council votes. Thank you very much.
Brittany Vandersum.
Council members, my name is Brittany Vandersum, she, her, and I am providing testimony today as a proud and concerned member of our community. I have followed the work of the PAC over the past couple of years and read their proposed plan. I felt their plan made good sense and reflected serious and measured consideration of the need for autonomous oversight of Portland police, something that I and other Portlanders view as necessary to ensure a more fair system of checks and balances. Checks and balances are absolutely essential to our American government, from the federal level, where we have different branches to counterbalance each other, to the local level, where we have latitude to determine how to hold our agencies accountable for their actions. What we as Portlanders have asked for is an accountability body to investigate and discipline PPB officers accused of misconduct. The spirit of such a body is that it is separate from that which it provides oversight for. That is what the PAC created and submitted to you. Your changes completely undermine this. They create real conflicts of interest by having PPB members nominate members of the Oversight Committee. I repeat this in simple terms. PPB will decide who oversees it. This is a conflict of interest. Other provisions you have added are baffling. A mandatory police ride-along for potential members who may have had tangible negative experiences with police, experiences we should hope members would bring to such a body to reflect the many viewpoints we would wish to have. Your changes undo the spirit of the excellent recommendations made by the PAC and are not in line with what the overwhelming majority of Portlanders voted for this work to accomplish. I am vehemently against the proposed changes and request that you restore the recommendations made by the PAC in their totality to put forward to the DOJ to achieve a functional system of checks and balances. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Angela Todd. Looks like Angela might have dropped off. We'll try to, oh, Angela, are you there?
Angela, can you hear us?
We can circle back. Why don't we move on to Evelyn McPherson?
I'm here now.
Oh, great.
Go ahead, Angela.
I'm here now. Something that wouldn't be called on me. I'm Ann Todd. I live in Mountain Tabor area, and I provide community reporting online for 150,000 people with PDI. Concerns about how the Police Accountability Commission will further impact policing in the city of Portland. I want to thank you for some of the amendments that you've made.
Angela, I think we lost your connection. Why don't you try calling back and we'll see if we can get a cleaner connection.
Okay, next up, Evelyn McPherson.
Welcome.
Hi, sorry, my babysitter's have impeccable timing. He decided he was hungry right now.
They have that ability, don't they?
He's in charge. My name is Evelyn. I am a lifelong resident in Portland, Oregon. I've spoken here before. I do have concerns with the original PAC proposal, but I also have concerns with some of the amendments. And I guess I would ask the same thing that one of the previous speakers asked is that we send it back to the voters. I don't think the voters clearly understood what was on the ballot. I have my own experience with accountability and police issues. I made a complaint when I witnessed something that I felt was disturbing, and I got an immediate call the next day. I was asked my opinion and what I thought should happen to that police officer, and I felt like there was fairly thorough investigation done for that officer. That was several years ago. So I know we've had those kinds of things in place before. I do agree that we should have some community input as far as disciplinary actions against officers, but I think we already have sort of a court of public opinion when it comes to that. There's a lot of opinions about the police in Portland, and unfortunately a lot of them are very negative, and it reflects poorly on our city. We have a lot of safety concerns, and as a mother, it's been extremely difficult to trust that my kids are safe riding the MAX or going to and from work and school. I think that it should be considered that there are people that have other points of view other than these people that have run on the PAC itself. We didn't vote these people into place. They're volunteering, and as admirable as it is to spend your time volunteering and not getting paid for something that you do, it should be considered that there's thousands of Portlanders that want more safety, and they actually want more funding for our police force because they can see in other places where there's funding for their police that there's also safety that comes in tandem with that. So I would really urge you to consider sending this back to the voters instead of making a decision on it today. I thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for being here.
Next up, we have Meg Robinson, followed by Jorge Bautista. Meg Robinson.
Welcome.
Hello. As a citizen of Portland, I'm here to testify in strong support of accountability, and as arguably one of the community members most engaged and familiar with the activities of the Police Accountability Commission, I'm here to voice my concerns about the proposal up for your consideration today. As you've heard so far and will continue to hear, there are strong opinions about this topic. And one of the very frustrating things about sorting through contentious issues is that feelings cannot be rationally litigated. I can't ask City Council to consider my feelings more than any other community members, so I will only present the following objective facts. Number one, the ballot measure 82% of voters supported was not 27 pages long, and certainly didn't include the language the Police Accountability Commission originally suggested to adopt. Number two, the voters who supported it were voting in the election of 2020 long before the consequences of the riots and sudden changes to the police budget had the chance to play out. I've attended about 3/4 of the community engagement events held by PAC, and they're not representative of Portland at large, just based on anecdotal evidence. And I agree with every other person who has spoken to the need to send this back to the voters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Jorge Bautista. Teresa Griffin Kennedy online. Teresa, you're muted.
Mute.
There
Can you hear
are.
me?
Yep, loud and clear. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you. I'll just read my statement here. The new Police Accountability Commission policies are blatantly anti-police and unfair to the Portland Police Bureau and its officers in their scope, tone, and suggested practices. These unworkable policies would prevent officers from productively and assertively advocating for crime prevention in the city of Portland and for promoting public safety. This Accountability Commission was created by a small group of anti-police extremists who have drafted unworkable, dangerous, and naive policies which will continue to put Portland citizens at risk, continuing this downward spiral. Former Commissioner Joanne Hardesty led the charge to pass Measure 26217 in 2020. Portland City Council voted to refer the measure to the ballot in the summer of 2020. The issue now is that the year is no longer 2020, but the latter part of 2023. And we have learned as a nation that the defund the police movement created in the wake of the horrible George Floyd murder has failed on a national level, and certainly in the city of Portland. The FBI published a long and well-researched report documenting the failure of this anti-police movement. It is accurate, valid, and insightful, and available online. Joanne Hardesty proved to be an unbalanced, unpredictable person who made many documentable errors in judgment. This included ludicrous claims about PPB engaging in criminal arson when they were not, and not doing their jobs, but rather, quote, eating all day instead. She accused police officers of engaging in reprehensible behavior, which she could not support, accusing them of being part of a, quote, rogue paramilitary organization when they were not. When some police officers began to resign looking for work elsewhere, Hardesty gloated in a most unseemly manner. This commission would be the death knell to Portland for a variety of reasons, which will undermine public safety for all residents. It asks for outlandish control and power, including an excessive budget. This would include more than 20 paying volunteer board members and their expenses. With not one person having a background in police science or law enforcement, the danger of these individuals making huge errors of judgment would be inevitable, with Portland residents paying the price. Too often, unqualified and uneducated individuals become involved in the important work of politics and creating policy. This commission is a terrible idea. Its sole purpose is to tie the hands of Portland police officers and prevent them from protecting citizens from crime. We have all seen what a lack of police presence has done to and within the city of Portland. Portland residents deserve better than the wild, wild west. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have James Offsank, Kenneth Lewis, and Dr. Leroy Haynes Jr.
Welcome, James. Why don't you go ahead and start for us?
Thank you. My name is James Offsank. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm here today representing Portland Forward. Portland Forward is an intergenerational organization focused on the big ideas that will make our city truly work for everyone. As longtime followers of public safety issues, we know that Portlanders want two things. We want both a safe community and an accountable police department. Opponents to accountability would like to argue that accountability reduces safety. What Portlanders know and how they voted is that, in fact, an accountable police department promotes a safer city. We closely followed the work of the Police Accountability Commission over 2 years, and as an organization committed to deep democracy and public engagement, we were very impressed with the process that they followed. We believe the City Council should honor the work of the PAC and the hundreds of people they heard from as they researched and developed their proposal. If Council ignores the efforts of the city's own commissions and the input of community members, it communicates to the people of Portland that you believe that their opinions and experiences don't matter in the creation of policy, and they should not bother to be involved. The council should recognize that Portland's richness has always been in the involvement of her residents. The PAC came up with good and nuanced answers to tricky questions around community complaints about police contact. In contrast, the ham-fisted proposal currently under consideration, developed with no community engagement or public input, moves us backwards on police accountability. Here are just a few of the many problems with the impoverished oversight system detailed by the city attorney's office. No longer will community members be able to appeal a decision they believe was incorrectly reached. Instead of adopting national standards of 4 possible outcomes, this unnecessarily removes non-punitive findings and that would improve the Bureau's policies and build community trust. The proposal removes transparency provisions, even those that exist today. And using Police Bureau members for a full third of the nominating committee strains the credulity that the new oversight system is truly independent. Again, we believe that the city should advance the PAC's proposal, and we thank you for your time today.
Thanks, James.
Kenneth Lewis.
Good afternoon. My name is Kenneth Lewis. I'm an attorney, a mental health rights advocate, and a former member of the Police Accountability Commission. Over the past 2 years, the commission, made up of volunteers selected by City Council, met more than 100 times, all open to the public and with time set aside for public comment, and hosted numerous community engagement events all over Portland. Their proposal was presented to City Council in September. Over the past 2 months, City Council has drafted their own proposal. They took no public comment, held no public meetings, and made no effort to engage with the actual people of Portland who overwhelmingly mandated these changes in the first place. It shows. This new proposal, released this week, fundamentally rewrites the original ballot measure that was passed and the proposals of the Citizen Commission in a way that makes a mockery of the voters' intent in calling for an independent police oversight body. It is an insult to the hard work of the volunteer commissioners and to the time and effort of the hundreds of Portlanders who came out and contributed to their work. Perhaps the most alarming change is the decision to have all of the members of the new oversight body nominated by a committee, including 3 members appointed by the police themselves. In 2 years of public comment, as well as in the work session that we had with this body, no one called for this change. It has not been publicly vetted in any way. Whatever conversations led to the creation of this new nominating committee, they did not occur in public, and the people of Portland were not included in them. Indeed, if you look at the composition of this nominating committee, it includes only 1 community member from each city council district. Each district, representing 160,000 Portlanders, will have 1 vote. The police will have 3. This should tell you all everything we need to know about how this city values its citizens. Let me be perfectly clear. This proposal does not represent the work of the Police Accountability Commission. It does not represent the will of the voters of Portland. What it does represent is a fitting capstone to 8 years of impotence and cowardice on behalf of our police commissioner and mayor. The fundamental flaw in our current accountability system is its lack of credibility with the people of Portland, and by passing this proposal, the City Council will continue and indeed deepen that lack of credibility. When that happens, it will be left to the next City Council to pick up the pieces and start over. Hopefully they will do better by this city.
Thank you. And just one quick correction for the record. I actually raised the issue in the work session that you just referenced around police or relatives of police, and you'll recall that we had a long conversation around legitimacy. And my concern was the lack of a principle of having people who are actually aware in an intimate level what happens as a police officer. And so I did express that, and I want to be clear, I expressed it on the record. We had a conversation here as a council with members of the PAC. You may not have been there, but I just want to be really clear, it was raised. Thank you.
The people of Portland voted the way they voted.
Thank you.
Next up, Dr. Leroy Haynes, Jr., online.
To the Honorable Mayor Ted Wheeler, distinguished members of the Portland City Council, I am the Reverend Dr. Leroy Haynes Jr., President of the Urbana Ministerial Alliance, over 75 years of service to this city of Portland, and chairperson of the Urbana Ministerial Alliance Coalition for Justice and Police Reform. Since 2003, with the Kendrick James case, I want to officially note that the AMA Coalition, since 2003, was the first to call for an independent oversight board because of the many unjustifiable shootings that have taken place in the Black population. The heart of the struggle the last 20 years, over 20 years of struggle calling for an independent oversight committee of reform of the Portland Police Bureau. And the heart of this is police accountability. This is what the citizens of Portland voted for in the referendum establishing of an police oversight board. We would like to thank the Police Accountability Commission for nearly 2 years of work on this proposal. The AMA Coalition is concerned with some of the changes proposed by the City Attorney Office. We believe that some of the oversight code amendments by the City Attorney proposal dilute the police oversight charter, which 82% of the voters voted with good sense. And to name a few, the makeup of the selection committee in 35B01B2. The other is the issue of the language. And the third one is the issues of powers and duties. The proposed change recommendation removed the 4 findings to 2, sustainability and non-sustainability. We believe that we must create an oversight committee that has power and authority. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your being here.
Next up, we have Simab Hussaini, followed by Loretta Guzman and Catherine McDowell.
Greetings, everybody. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Appreciate it. Yes, Simab Hussaini, Pacific Northwest Justice Group, he, him, his. I'd like to highlight that the proposed changes pretty much ignores 2 years of work. Community's tireless investment, constant input and feedback. Also, let's highlight that there's been minimal, if not zero, presence and feedback in all our public meetings from almost all presenters on your panels. naysayers, and city council staff, minus City Attorney Heidi Brown. When I spoke to you guys last time we presented this, I let you guys know that this is supposed to be a win for you, for us, for the city of Portland. But apparently there's people are flustered over 82% of Portland voting being something credible. 82% is an astounding number. You'd hope that any of your initiatives pass by that and not be second guessed. And to suggest that it is flawed and an emotional response to George Floyd is the excuse of corruption, privilege, and at its core is racism. Democracy works by the vote, not by hurt white tears. Hurt white tears is the lifeblood of police brutality. That's something for a city that's been under US DOJ lawsuit over its police brutality for over 10 years. It's great when policing works well for white people. The system needs to make it equitable. This shouldn't be about undoing a Black woman's legacy. And finally, I dedicate my testimony to the memories of two good friends, Chanel Thomas and Sean Jacobson. Between their advocacy in violence reduction and victims advocacy, they joined FitCog. And within the last 6 months, as recent as last week, at the ages of 40 and 30, they're no longer with us. In our dedication, we stress over this work and overlook our health. And they gave their lives for this work. And for the many of you that sit in privilege and scoff at this and dilute this work, shame on you.
Loretta Guzman.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Loretta. I'm a small business owner here in the city of Portland. And I just want to say I thank you guys for reviewing this report that the PAC had put together recently. Like I said, I was never invited to any of these hearings that they had or whatever they were. I would have liked to had to put my input on some of this stuff, but I wasn't able to. Our Constitution was framed in 1857. In 1859, Oregon went into the Union. As it states in the Oregon Constitution, laws embody the rules. We have a right to peace, safety, and happiness. Public safety is a fundamental right. The state and local government have a constitutional duty to protect us. Currently, we are missing public safety and public health. Just look around us. We know what it's like to live without enforcement. There are no standards for bad behavior. Being a law-abiding citizen, we deserve the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Currently, our PPB has had some serious tough years and have not been able to do their jobs for we the people. Our justice system has deteriorated. There are no standards of consequences for bad behavior or crime. PPB needs to be able to reduce crime, help to preserve life, protect the community, we the people. Allow PPB to get the proper training so they can be in compliance with this settlement agreement instead of constantly finding fault to the point that they are not in compliance and cannot get the proper training. This should be a two-way street. The one way has come to a dead end and too many deaths are at the end of it. Stop demonizing our PPB and allow them to start serving we the people. This is harmful to all of our health, both mental and physical. Our city is in a state of emergency with no accountability or standards for bad behavior or crime, asking for equal and fair justice for all. So who are we going to call when this is, when we need help? Ghostbusters?
Thank you.
Catherine McDowell.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for hearing my testimony today. I'm Catherine McDowell, and I use she, her pronouns. I own a small business in downtown Portland, and I was appointed to the PAC in that capacity. After Tyree Nichols' death at the hands of police in January of 2023, this council issued a unified public statement that police accountability is critical to the, quote, promise of safety for all Oregonians. With the goal of supporting safety for all community members, I worked with my colleagues for almost 2 years to design the most robust police accountability system possible, one informed by best practices across the nation and local community input. We handed off our work to the city in good faith, assuming that our shared commitment to public safety, fidelity to Measure 26217, and to listening to community feedback would result in adoption of our proposed code revisions unless there were clear and compelling reasons to revise or reject them. Unfortunately, without explanation or feedback to the PAC, the city has removed many significant and important code recommendations and added new and problematic provisions. The condensed result is a much less robust system of accountability than what we recommended, which is a negative development for public safety in the city of Portland. The explanation we heard today, legal concerns and code issues, does not square with the nature of the changes made and the fact that our recommendations were carefully reviewed by counsel retained for us by the city attorney's office. I join my colleagues on the PAC in asking you to table the proposal for today. We request a public meeting between the city attorney and former members of the PAC, as well as other members of the public, to review the changes and allow us to offer meaningful feedback. The city should then revise the plan before it moves forward with negotiations with the DOJ. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Jay Amai Chi, followed by Reed Parham and Sandy Chung.
Welcome.
All right. Well, as a member of the PAC, I'm here to express my profound disappointment with the recent changes regarding our recommendations. This testimony is not just an expression of disagreement, but a plea to preserve the integrity of our civic processes. The PAC, appointed by the city and representatives of our community's will, was tasked with devising this civilian review process to ensure PPP are accountable to their own standards of conduct. However, the city attorney's recent amendments significantly altered these recommendations without consulting either the commission members or the Portland community at large. This unilateral approach is not only a travesty, but also a blatant disregard for democratic principles. One of my core concerns is the proposal to include 3 police bureau representatives on the committee responsible for selecting members of the Community Police Oversight Board. This move starkly contradicts the essence of an independent civilian review board as mandated by the ordinance passed by an overwhelming 82% of Portland voters. The community's desire for a clear demarcation between the Police Bureau and the Oversight Board is evident, and any attempt to blur this line should be rejected outright. Furthermore, the city attorney's rewrite of the complaint navigator's role undermines the commission's intent to offer immediate support to individuals filing complaints of police misconduct. This delay in assigning navigators will discourage individuals from pursuing complaints, thereby eroding public trust in the city's commitment to upholding their rights. Equally concerning is the removal of the right to appeal complaint decisions, a fundamental aspect of our previous oversight system since 1982. Additionally, the inclusion of a vague prohibition against anti-police bias is troubling. Such ambitious terms are open to misinterpretation and could be used politically to sideline voices that advocate for accountability. And in fact, I think this is the intent. There are those here on this council who seem not to care about the principles of justice or democracy, who are more concerned with listening to big money donors and suburban reactionaries. And if you look throughout time, the types that demand a return to the status quo, who cry we've gone too far in the face of any progress, are never vindicated by history. It becomes clear over time that they stood on the wrong side of it to the embarrassment of their descendants. So if you can't be swayed by your own conscience into doing the right thing, at least consider the impact of these decisions on your legacy. As elected representatives, your actions can leave an indelible mark on how history remembers you. Gutting these vital recommendations will not only be seen as a betrayal of public trust, but also as a stain on your political careers. It will signal to reasonably minded people that you have disregard for the principles of accountability and transparency that you were elected to uphold.
Reed Parham.
Good afternoon. My name is Reed Parham. I'm a software engineer who has lived and worked in the City Core for 15 years. I'm here today because I could predict what you would hear over and over from people who look just like me. Portland is unsafe. Portland needs more police. The PAC's proposal is anti-police liberalism. But no, what I want to ask is whose safety concerns us? For white business owners? For my white-collar peers who work downtown? What our community knows through data, history, and lived experience is that Portland has never felt safe to people of color. When white people started to notice, care, and join in these protests, we saw violence at the hands of police too. When we saw it for ourselves, we spoke at the ballot box. And now here we are again, listening to a lot of white people, listening to how the tides have turned, how the moment was 2020, and how what we need to feel more safe is more police who have more power in their own accountability. So who should we believe now? The 20 volunteers appointed by the council itself? The voters of 2020? Or my fellow white people telling you that our feelings have changed? I participated in those protests. I have the scars. I know the taste of tear gas, just like you, Ted. And I marched with you all arm in arm. I saw police overreach, just like you did. Anti-police sentiment will not be solved with community ride-alongs. Institutional problems cannot be solved by one good cop. In 2017, I was victim to a violent home invasion. The PPB officer who quickly arrived was kind, listened, and believed me. I felt safe and reassured in a deeply unsettling event. Both of those examples of my experience with law enforcement can and do exist for me simultaneously. So today I ask that you counselors also hold two truths at the same time. There is a need for safety in our city, and police should be held accountable to the community. Public trust will be earned back with transparency, policy change, and meaningful public oversight. I'm confident that the PAC put more than a good faith effort to build their proposals on those principles. Please use your power to honor the community, not to further cower to the institutional power of people who look like me. Thank you.
Sandy Chung.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Sandy Chung. My pronouns are she and her. I'm the Executive Director of the ACLU of Oregon. The ACLU of Oregon is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to defending and advancing civil liberties and civil rights. The Portland Police has a long and continuing history of intimidating, harassing, harming, and killing Black and brown people. Portland Police have killed Black and brown people with sleeper chokeholds, by shooting them in the back, and while they were on their knees with their arms raised. Portland Police have harassed Black restaurant owners with dead possums and been part of harassing them by arresting them. Many of these situations recently. Portland Police continue to disproportionately target Black and brown drivers, even after being put on notice about this multiple times. People of color, low income, houseless, and disabled communities bear the weight of police misconduct and violence. It is important that the city of Portland remember and act on this history and continuing reality. We can't achieve a safe, thriving Portland if we don't change this reality, if we don't create true accountability for police. The Police Accountability Commission spent almost 2 years putting together its recommendations, aiming to ensure that the spirit, intent, and purpose of Measure 26-217 and the will of voters was honored. The city attorney's proposals deviate from the commission's recommendations in ways that undermine the effectiveness of the Community Police Accountability Board. The deviations create dangerous conflicts of interest on the nominating committee, create a potential bias for excluding people with directly relevant lived and work experiences from board service, and undermines the transparency of the board's processes and decisions. These concerns are set out in more detail in written testimony that I've submitted to you today. The ACLU of Oregon requests that you ask the city attorney to go back and work with the Police Accountability Commission to identify and resolve the detrimental deviations from their recommendations. And we're happy to provide technical assistance, but there actually has to be time for meaningful input and dialogue. Please act consistent with the democratic principles and value of trusting and honoring the will of the voters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Tiana Tozer online. Tiana, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you sound great.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Hi, I'm in an airport, so my apologies. But but I thought it was important to be here today. My name is Tiana Tozer, and I'm here today as a private citizen, a victim of violent crime, and as a member of an over-policed minority as identified by the Police Accountability Commission. I am here to testify against the Police Punishment Commission, which would be a better name for what the PAC final report outlined. Creating a biased accountability commission that has no oversight or accountability and costs 5% of the police budget, $13 million, is simply a thinly veiled attempt to further decrease the police presence in Portland. Now I'm going to speak some hard truths. 5.8% of Portlanders are Black. Since Hardesty's Defund the Police movement, Willamette Week in August 2021 reported that Black Portlanders are killed at 12 times the rate of white Portlanders. If the PAC passes as is, that number will increase. Is that our goal? What are we going for here? Killing Black Portlanders at 20 times the rate of white Portlanders? Truly great leaders are not afraid to take a step back from policies that start out with good intentions and lose their way. I have served in Iraq and Sudan, and I have seen corruption and policies that serve the few rather than the many. But this commission report is one of the most biased things I have ever seen. Shame on the people who came up with these biased recommendations, and shame on us if we let it stand. If this passes, the most vile criminal will be afforded more rights than members of the Portland Police Bureau. You might as well set up a guillotine in Portland Courthouse Square. You cannot solve social problems based on false narratives. The Oregonian reported that since 2003, 28% of Portland police shootings were Black people. However, 50% of Portland police shootings were people with mental illness, people with disabilities, my people, and that is a different problem than people are shooting Black people. The riots and violence that Portlanders endured for 180 days and nights were based on a false narrative, and this solution for police accountability is based on a false narrative. It is time for Portland to face the truth and to own its truth. I urge you not just to vote no, but to throw out this farce on accountability and start over. That would be the democratic thing to do, and I beg you to do this for 99.9% of Portlanders who just want to live. You cannot fight injustice with injustice. Throw it out, throw it all out, and start over by appointing an unbiased committee. Thank you so much for your time, and I apologize for the background noise. Have a great evening.
Have a safe flight.
Next up, we have Amy Wood, followed by Jason Kafori and Mary Caraway.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Amy Wood. While I thank you for the amendments that you've made to this proposal so far, I do want to ask you to consider sending it back to the voters. Portland's priorities and needs are vastly different today than when this measure was voted on. Measure 217 would not pass today. We are a city in crisis, and we face a police staffing crisis that's impacting public safety like never before. In Portland today, 911 calls can take more than a minute to answer due to the high volume of people in need. We struggle to recruit new officers, and I believe we're finally breaking the mid-800 level, but we really need 1,200 or more for a city our size. Average police response time, I believe, is around 22 minutes, and that's if we're even staffed to send a police officer on some calls. No one can even go out and respond. We have no sobering centers and are experiencing at full speed the impact of Measure 110 and its impact on our police resources. Worst yet, we've had 63 homicides so far this year, an alarmingly high number compared to our 10-year average. Portland's priorities have changed. Our city has changed. We still value police accountability, but we also value police. The anti-police bias built into the core of this proposal will undermine our ability to recruit and retain good officers. It will undermine our ability as a city to recover and thrive. We deserve a safe city, and to accomplish that, we need a healthy police force. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason Kafori.
Jason Kafori, attorney Kafori and McDougall. Our law firm has handled some of the largest verdicts in the last few decades of Portland police excessive force. We recently had a verdict last week with the city of Salem. The city of Salem offered $12,001 for a case where an officer grabbed a Hispanic man's shoulder, wrenched it, twisted it, he had surgery, and the jury yesterday in federal court here in Portland awarded $3.15 million. And in that case, that officer had 20 uses of forces within a 7-month period. And for this use of force where my client wasn't even arrested and they just drove off, guess what happened? a supervisor signed off on the use of force within 18 minutes, and there's never been an investigation of that officer, period. 26-217, I was part of the team that passed this. It is, the way we structured it, the best, we are going to have the best independent citizen review board with the most power, the most budget, and the most ability to discipline officers in the entire country. It just is. And their folks for PAC worked for years to put this proposal together. And for the city attorneys and city council to just come in and say, well, we're going to make all these changes and not sit down with PAC and work through those and see if you can reach some resolution on those. It is not a decision that meets the rational smell test. There are many, many great police officers, but there are a few bad officers that do use of force over and over and over again. And if we don't find a way for true citizen independent review that has the power to discipline and the power to compel testimony and the budget to do real investigations, then we're not going to do what the will of the voters, the 82% wanted. And so I urge city council, don't rush this through. Take a moment, meet with the PAC folks, and try to work through some of these differences, because I don't think some of the differences are that large, but I think it's important we get this one right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mary Caraway. Aubrey Havener. Dan Lee. Jamie Aller. Jose Cienfuegos.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for letting me talk today. My name is Jose Cienfuegos. I am a lawyer for over 20 years. I have 2 children. I attend Portland Public Schools. I'm here to represent the Revitalize Portland Coalition. We are a collective voice of Portland commercial real estate focused on providing feedback and advising public officials on issues of public safety, homelessness, livability, and economic vitality. We are made up of over 24 companies, and we have 8,000 members that all have a real, true, and honest interest in what happens in Portland and its citizens. More importantly today, how they are policed. About me, I started my legal career as a public defender in Washington County. I was a public defender here in Multnomah County. I did public defense for several years. I was like to think, a great advocate for those people that were treated not in the most fair ways. And I made sure that they got the most justice as they possibly could, including peoples of color and LGBTQ members. I was also hired on by the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office, and I worked there, and I had a successful career representing victims in the state of Oregon and the community of Portland. On both sides of that criminal justice coin, I've seen professional and responsible officers that cared about their job, what they did in the community that they served. They did excellent work. They treated people with kindness and respect. And I found those to be the majority of the officers in the Portland Police Bureau. And I worked closely with them and the Sheriff's Department. But I also saw and witnessed misconduct. Now, I think what we all see here in the comments that I heard, many people that are all very interested and had very important ideas, is that we all want a Portland Police Bureau that's made up of responsible professional members that serve the community that we all exist in. I think a police accountability is important, but most importantly, it's needed. No question, it absolutely is. It should be fair, unbiased. It should work with Portland Police Bureau when possible to ensure that Portland police officers are held accountable for their misconduct. Investigations should be fair, timely, and allowed to be done without undue influence. Discipline, if necessary, should be fair, proportional to the misconduct found. I think the current and most recent proposal amendments, I believe, address these goals in turn. More importantly, we have a staffing problem. We need to attract police officers and retain police officers that we want doing the job and doing it correctly here in police and treating people with color and, in fact, all people in Portland with respect that they're due. But yes, accountability needs to happen. Our group supports going forward with the amended language. I thank you for your time today, and I appreciate all the work with all the people that had to do a very hard job of coming up with that plan. As a lawyer, I see it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Richard Perkins, followed by Terrence Hayes and Richard Cheverton.
Good afternoon. Keelan, do we, in a minute or two, do we need to take a brief break? Okay, why don't we go through these three and then we'll take a quick, like a 5-minute break. Okay, great.
Good evening. I'm Dick Perkins, ex-heroin addict and ex-con. The murder of George Floyd was an awakening for many of us. A lot of compassion and anger was generated in the 9 minutes it took George Floyd to succumb. An ashamed public passed the PAC referendum overwhelmingly to provide better police oversight following George Floyd's death. I voted for it, knowing we needed to change methods of policing. Then we spent pandemic time watching protests turn to riots and black-clad anonymous activists take to the streets. Protesters dehumanized the cops with slogans like, "All cops are bastards," and "Death to cops." They did to the cops what they accused the cops of doing to them. Now we can accept we need more police, not fewer. We badly need them to be effective in keeping the community safe from gun violence, the manufacture and distribution of the meth and fentanyl that is killing people on the streets, disproportionately people of color. We need to protect marginalized groups living on the streets from violence. We need to treat illnesses like psychosis and addiction without resorting to incarceration. But we also know there are some very dangerous people living on our streets who need to be in jail. It is not safe for anyone today. I support the approval of your proposal, the changes in the PAC. Let's hope the result is a safer community and better integration of police into the community and less need for them because we find values we can share and not dehumanize each other. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Terrence Hayes.
Welcome, Mr. Hayes.
Thanks, Mayor. How y'all doing? City Commissioners, my name is Terrence Hayes. I am a community member first. I have a cousin who was murdered by a Portland police officer, Quantas Hayes, which I heard multiple people make reference to. I am also the chair of the FITCOG, which is a community oversight group for the Focus Intervention Team. I really struggle today with the extremities of opinions, especially when they seem to insist that they represent the total opinion of the Black community, which historically people seem to do in this city. They seem to steal the voice and narrative of the Black community and speak of it as if they are the authority. And at times, Black community members do the same thing. I really struggle with that because our community is full with a lot of people with a lot of different opinions about things. And so I really wish that people would be careful not to leverage key words and terminologies in order to prove their point. I strongly disagree that this thing needs to go back to voters. We need something to hold officers accountable when they do wrong. And I also strongly disagree of any narrative that insists that the PAC had the ability to create something perfect simply because they were picked out by the same commissioners that they are now going at full force today. I think that the truth is that somewhere in the middle, the community remains safe and grows to be safe, which most people are talking about safety as if we're not becoming better. And police officers do not, let me repeat this, police officers having accountability has nothing to do with the community being safer. I don't think police officers who even disagree with the PAC would think that that was a good excuse not to protect the community. Those things are two different things, and at some point we have to end it. I'll close on this. We need something now. Anything that prolongs this thing for months and years does not represent the best interests of the marginalized community that I speak for, or in the best interest of holding police accountable. The extremities of these voices need to stop ruling and reigning over this city, and we need to meet somewhere in the middle so that we can move forward and our community can be safe, our officers can grow and be better versions of themselves, and don't bring new sets of harms to the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Richard Cheverton.
And is this the last?
This is the last one.
Okay, very good. Welcome, Richard.
Richard, you're muted.
Then we'll take like a 5-minute break, if that's okay.
Okay, I'm unmuted. I'm the author, writer of the Substack, Portland Dissent. I have a few questions for you. You don't have to answer right now, but if this sitting council is going to fill 21 seats, maybe 33 seats on this committee, how are you going to divvy that up? And is that going to be a public process? Or will you simply dump those names on us as in the case of the Charter Commission? They just seem to pop up out of nowhere. Looking forward, you guys are all lame ducks, and very soon we're going to have 12 people on city council. How are they going to manage this institution? Which of you, show me a show of hands here, which of you is going to appoint a felon to this august body? Which of you actually, put your hand up, will be appointing Dan Handelman to this committee? Where will the balance between sanity and hatred of cops be struck? Who is willing to put $100 on the table that this will actually survive some degree of constitutional scrutiny? Most of all, Amendment number 14. And finally, how do you expect you're going to find a new chief of police if you are asking him to take the job on the basis of this kind of ongoing look over his shoulder? I'd sure be interested in your answers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Richard. So we'll take a 5-minute recess at this point. It is currently about 4:10. We'll reconvene at 4:15. We're in recess. Keelan, we'll let you go ahead and continue to do the good work you're doing.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up, we have Patrick Patterson online.
Welcome, Patrick.
All right, thank you. Let me start my video here. All right. So I'm here today. Well, my name is Patrick Patterson for the record. As a fourth generation Black Oregonian, I'd like to express my support and encouragement for the council's modifications to the PAC's proposal. As you are all able to see, it was clear the PAC was not balanced and contained many anti-police individuals. This has resulted in an unbalanced view as well as recommendation. This is the last thing Portland needs with its existing troubles in recruiting new officers and retaining its existing ones. The Portland voters voted for accountability and change, not bias and erosion of public safety. I appreciate this council seeing through the proposed ruse put forth by the PAC and taking the necessary steps to correct it. Keep up the good work, and please carry on with your proposed modifications. Thank you.
Thank you.
She's treating it that way.
Okay, next up, we have Marcia Gulick, followed by Reverend Dr. W. Mark Knutson and Babs Vanelli. Is Marcia Gulick here? Nope. Okay, let's. Oh. Okay, thanks. Let's see. Okay, and then we have Reverend Dr. W. Mark Knutson. Reverend, you're muted.
There you go.
There we go.
Thank you. For the record, Reverend Dr. W.J. Mark Knutson, Senior Pastor, Augustana Lutheran Church, Portland, a founding member of the Steering Committee of the Albina Ministerial Alliance for Justice and Peace Reform, and part of the campaign team that worked tirelessly with a short time span to pass 26-217. 82% of Portlanders voted for that. For many of us in this council chamber today, whether virtually in person, this is not a new issue. For many, many years, we've worked on changing policing in America. To Mayor Wheeler and members of the council, thank you for your servant leadership. We keep elected leaders in our prayers, they'll make the right decisions. You as well. But today we want to particularly say thank you once again to the members, the Police Accountability Commission and the work they did. 140 meetings over 2 years, and then presented a document that had really Kairos amount change in it to could transform, begin the transformation in ways of what needs to take place in policing. Scripturally, we say, let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. That talks about change that is real. And in America, we know the institution of policing, the culture must change. But you don't do that without accountability. And you don't do that with the transformation of who make up our peacekeeping forces. I wish they would become 21st century peacekeeping groups, not even forces, but members of our community. And so the work that's been done is vital. To change it the way it's being changed, I must object to it. Say, we call for you to go back to work with the Police Accountability Commission and look at this. We've been in federal court now with Dr. Haynes taking the lead, Dr. Bethel, myself, and others walking alongside, and our lawyers with the city, the Department of Justice, because the AMAC has been a friend of the court, enhanced amicus status. And this has been 12 years, but I have to go back and say Aaron Campbell, Keaton Otis, Kendra James, and the list goes on. So in America today, it's not just small steps or change. We need to talk about transforming the way we do community peacekeeping. And this is an important step along the way. So if nothing less, go back to the table with the Police Accountability Commission and talk, but don't move forward with the proposals from today. Thank you so much to all of you and all who are bringing this. Let's weave this community to be the beloved community Dr. King encouraged us to do. Blessings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Babs Vanelli.
Hi there. I've testified before and gotten feedback that it was difficult to hear me. So I'm checking now.
Sounds better.
Thank you. Okay, I'm still Babs Vanelli, 75-year-old lifelong Portland resident, and have to remind you once again that we seniors vote. Now, in the last hour, I've changed my testimony. I did follow the Police Accountability Commission, attended numerous meetings, and supported 110% their final report. Today, my tally, and I I think I'm right, there's been at least 10 people from the Police Accountability Commission that have testified. All that's on record, and I support, again, 110% everything those people have said. I recognize several of them from watching them all those months. The main thing I will emphasize, and this was said by several of them, they're requesting a public meeting with the city attorney and former members of the Police Accountability Commission. I could go on about all the other things and just say ditto, 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 but for right now, I will leave it at that. Please give these folks a chance to meet with you. Give us Portlanders a chance to advise you and to help you make the best possible decision for our beloved city of Westwood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Tim Larson.
Welcome, Tim.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for your patience.
Sorry. It's clear we have two basic types of testimony this afternoon. The first is from highly motivated citizens groups which want complete control over the Portland Police Bureau. They can frequently be identified by their emotional speech, their frequent discourtesy to yourselves and the audience, and their unwillingness to listen to others who have differing opinions. The second group is made up of citizens who are more likely to present facts and data to bolster their arguments. The deportment of this second group is demonstrably cooperative with moderated voices, respectful of both yourselves sitting on our council and of all the people in these hearings. I ask that you consider several important facts before making this difficult decision regarding the implementation of this agenda item, or making an equally difficult decision to make changes necessary to ensure that all members of our community will be safer in the future. The cost of operating the Citizens Oversight Committee has been estimated to be $12 million annually, but the true number cannot be determined due to the many variables involved, including increased costly participation by the Portland Police Bureau. And what will we be getting for this huge new outlay of tax money? Will we somehow have a miraculous change of policy based on information that the numerous other Portland boards, committees, and study groups have somehow overlooked for the past 20 years? I think not. And I consider myself to be in good company on this. A comprehensive 2018 report on existing police accountability commissions published by the Federal Department of Justice found no empirical evidence that civilian oversight boards and committees have decreased police misconduct, nor have they reduced friction between police departments and their communities. So basically, whatever we do, it's not going to have any more results than the 100 police activity oversight boards that already exist. The prudent thing to do today is not to accept the recommendations as presented, but to soberly accept the fact that in spite of the good intentions of this commission, we cannot allow their recommendations to place us all further in harm's way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Faith Aiken, followed by John Pearson and Meredith Mathis.
Good afternoon. My name is Faith Aiken. You've seen me here numerous times in my role on the PAC. I can tell you're tired. And you're tired of hearing how hard we worked, but it's a necessary part of my testimony. For the better part of 2 years, I gave my evenings to this work. When there was an opportunity to volunteer, I did. I made spreadsheets, I made timelines, I made graphics, wrote recommendations, and edited documents. I was committed to making our language clear, concise, and as accessible as possible. I don't recount this for thanks, but to emphasize the commitment that I and my colleagues made to this work. You have thanked us at our quarterly reports, at our work sessions, or when you came to one of our public meetings, you shared your appreciation. You approved our final report unanimously. As we scrambled to the finish line, the city attorney, your staff, or you yourself had every opportunity to engage with us. Every single PAC meeting is available for the public to view and give public comment. If one was to question why we made a decision, it's answerable in the hours of our YouTube meetings. If one was to share concern of anti-police bias, there was time. Yet here we are, with a watered-down version of what we prepared for you. What we presented was thorough, informed, within scope, and consistent with what the voters asked us to do. What you handed back is rushed, feckless, and spits in the face of people who have experienced violence at the hands of police. It's clear that you're comfortable in the trade-off you're making. Politics, campaign donations, a change in public will at the cost of community input, our work at the cost of Black lives. Maybe my colleagues are not as fed up as I am, but when my friends in my community come to me to ask if volunteering for the city was worth it, I can tell them, absolutely not. And that's a shame for you, because I'm your key demographic, middle class, college educated, and civically engaged. Just like me are other folks of color who will not participate in these committees when trust continues to be broken over and over and over. I'll close with the same shared request as my colleagues, a public meeting between the city attorney and the former members of the PAC to have meaningful dialogue towards a revised plan before council votes. Thank you.
John Pearson. Meredith Mathis.
My name is Meredith Mathis. I'm testifying on behalf of the Mental Health Alliance, amicus to the DOJ settlement agreement. MHA opposes several proposed changes that undermine the goals of both the settlement agreement and the voters' will to hold the police accountable for misconduct. Two of the things I was going to talk about were actually mentioned in the beginning. We're going to oppose having the prominent police presence on the appointment committee. It sounds like there was an amendment to change that. So if that amendment removes such a prominent police presence on the appointment committee, then we would support it. And then also MHA opposes allowing for-cause removal on the basis of bias against the police. It sounds like that is also being considered. If it can't be removed because of language in the settlement agreement, then MHA recommends at least providing objective criteria for making a determination of bias that directly relates to the functioning of the board. And then MHA opposes the requirement that CVPA members participate in a police ride-along. This requirement could place an unnecessary burden on community members most impacted by police misconduct, which would include people with mental illness or trauma disorders, and it would be inappropriate to create such a barrier to participation that would exclude otherwise qualified individuals. And yeah, for brevity, it's been a long day, so I'll end it there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Sophia Glenn.
I'd like to address Mayor Wheeler, Commissioner Ryan, Commissioner Rubio, Commissioner Mapps, and Commissioner Gonzalez. My name is Sophia Glenn, Dr. Sophia Glenn. I have a PhD in economics. I was part of the Police Accountability Commission. I am also a member of the Pacific Northwest Family Circle, which is a group of individuals who have lost loved ones to police violence. I'm coming today to ask, to plead with you all to reconsider what you've proposed so far. I know that this proposal, this ballot measure, was something that was done before you all were here, except for, I guess, Mayor Wheeler. And I know that it probably doesn't have the same feel for you as it had for the other commissioners when it was passed unanimously by the commissioners. I have attended many of the meetings where we were requesting input and making presentations. And I will say that I was disappointed in some of the behavior from some of the commissioners. I felt that there was no attention being paid to us. I found people texting. I found people talking to each other and not really listening to us. So I'm concerned at this point that this decision has been rushed. I'm concerned that I know there's a lot of time that's been taken out. I'm concerned that maybe this isn't the baby that you wanted, but having the job and the duty to be a commissioner, to follow through with what the commissioners have put forth and what the voters have wanted. Some of the changes I have been pretty disappointed with, especially putting the police in charge of selecting. The DOJ, this whole thing was started because the DOJ has made a suit against the city of Portland. And seeing as how the changes that have been made without any conditions of finding reasons with the committee, the Portland Police Accountability Commission, is very concerning to me. We are a diverse group of people who were appointed by you all, and I figured that we were trusted and that you all had us in mind. We are a very diverse group of people coming from different backgrounds and trying to represent the community as a whole, taking a lot of effort and time with the attorney, including the city attorneys, to make sure that the proposals that we presented to you were within the legal realms. So I feel as if we are not being trusted. Our time and effort has been null and void, and the transparency and the need for the DOJ is still there. So I ask that you please reconsider. Please do not vote on this today. Please consult with the PAC and the rest of the public on how we might find a way to make changes that are pleasing and amenable and true for the people of Portland. And it all comes, and it doesn't happen. I deplore the DOJ to reject your proposal. So I thank you. I hope that you all consider what you're doing and understanding that we all have spent a lot of time and we are very committed, that is the PAC and the public, to making sure that we have a good police force in our community, one that serves and protects all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Lavisa Lloyd, followed by Olivia Worrell and Orson Anderson.
And if I could just again ask people to keep it as close to 2 minutes as possible. I don't want to lose the quorum, and I have another event tonight. And so let's try and keep it as close to 2 minutes as we can, please.
Thank you. My name is Lovisa Lloyd, former member of the PAC, and I ask you, please do not vote on this today. There are a number of issues being brought forward which, while critical, are completely outside the very limited scope of work assigned to the Police Accountability Commission. I beg you to stay focused on the issue at hand. You asked us to do this work, we did it, and then you took our report and you scribbled on it. The process of amendment has been rushed and inscrutable, and there is simply no good reason to rush a vote or a report or an amendment process that is this important. Like my fellow volunteers, I spent the better part of 2 years devoting 2 to 3 nights a week doing careful work on the original report. Throwing out the work of the PAC at this point is like stepping over $1 to pick up a dime. You work as a group, so you can appreciate how difficult it has been to work on a consensus model, but that is exactly what we did. Despite having many different opinions about the facts presented to us, over and over, the PAC relied on values of equity, harm reduction, and anti-racism to craft, pass, and approve unanimously our final report. Our work was driven by deep respect and care for the community that we come from and that we represent. I would like to say thank you and commend the members of council and members of the public who attended and engaged with our many, many public meetings. If you attended any of those meetings, you know that they were not barn burners. They were dry administrative affairs. They were methodical. You know that we frequently read and reread the scope and language of our assignments page by page and word by word to ensure that we understood the assignment. We completed our homework of creating recommendations for the best possible community accountability board within the scope of all applicable law and policy. It is hard to reconcile your previous praise and engagement with the work of the PAC with this mangled alternate version. Our report was completely within the scope of what you asked from us. It was reviewed by council, and most important, it was consistent with what the voters asked us to do. These edits are baffling, unnecessary, insensitive, ill-informed, and they do not comport with the city's values. And I'll close quickly with the same shared request as my colleagues. We request a public meeting with the city attorney and the former members of the PAC to walk through these changes. Please allow us to offer meaningful feedback on the revisions and a revised plan before council votes. Thank you.
Olivia Worrell.
Hello, my name is Olivia Worley. I'm a 22-year-old barista and bartender working in downtown Portland, right in the hub of the Central Precinct, the county courthouse, and the Trade Center. Safety is very important to me. I'm present in downtown Portland 5 days a week, and I've never once felt unsafe. The idea that more police equals more safety is absurd and dangerous. In the age of social media and COVID, my generation organizes online. It was young people who were at the forefront of the Black Lives Matter resurgence in 2020 when police violence was publicly highlighted. I have seen firsthand now how police do not aim to protect, but rather intimidate communities with violence under the guise of safety. A particular emphasis must be placed on the safety of Black lives, which will not come without police accountability. Including police union members in the PAC would in no way benefit the city of Portland, but rather endanger public safety, defeating the purpose of an accountability committee altogether. I can assume that all of you here today are looking to not only keep your seats on this council and the city, but to grow your voter base and support moving forward. Please allow me to remind you that none of these things are possible without anyone in this room and on this call. You are accountable to us. You are here to serve your community, and instead you are attempting to rewrite policy the people of Oregon have already voted on. You are not above the voters. My generation is tired and disillusioned about secretive decision-making that results in our lack of safety and trust in our government. Today I am here, maybe as one of only few people under the age of 30, asking you to work to create that trust with my generation and my community by protecting Portland from yourself about policing. Honor the PAC and the voters by allowing them to be the ones to hold us accountable. Please do not hold a vote today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Orson Anderson.
Good afternoon, Orson Anderson, PAC Watch. I'm testifying to express my unconditional support for a fair and just police accountability system. I attended many of the PAC meetings and community engagements over the past year. If we want a fair and just labor environment for our law enforcement officers, it is imperative that wrongdoers on the force are disciplined or terminated. At the same time, our accountability system cannot be tainted by the profound anti-police bias I witnessed during the past year. The Police Accountability Commissioners had a clear anti-police agenda, which they promoted brazenly throughout their deliberations and community engagement sessions, as well as in their focus groups. Commissioner Rubio's amendment would keep more PAC membership involved, since some of CRC members are also former PAC. Who benefits from a demoralized and dehumanized police force? Perhaps organized crime? It is worth mentioning that the Portlanders dying from gun violence at the highest rates are disenfranchised African immigrant community members were never represented on the PAC. Portlanders voted for a measure to create police accountability system that would be just and impartial. They did not read the fine print on allocating over $12 million to a board of 33 volunteers who are asking for private security services for their membership. Private security is a luxury of the wealthy elite. The membership is also asking for mental health services to deal with trauma they might vicariously experience during the board's proceedings, mental health care that would be an impossible luxury for many Portlanders. Portlanders did not realize they were voting in the Oversight Board with the largest per capita bankroll in America. Portlanders know we are facing budget challenges as a city, and they want our limited funds invested in groups such as Portland Response and upstream violence prevention. I believe Portlanders should be given another chance to vote on a ballot measure written in plain language that asserts their desire for a fair police accountability system, one that is fiscally reasonable with strong anti-bias practices and constitutional values. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Christy McMurtry, Francesca Barini, and Sangha Mabakline.
Welcome. Thanks for your patience. You can go ahead and start.
Go ahead. Good afternoon. I'm Christy McMurtry. I believe I voted for this measure because I believe we all need to speak up for those who have been terribly treated or killed at the hands of those who abuse their power and operate from a place of hatred, anger, or fear. There are many cops who simply should not be officers of the peace. We voted for and trusted that there would be balance, lack of bias, and the opportunity for a new transparent model to build collaboration, trust, and reform. Law-abiding citizens and cops all want this. We know the stories of people calling 911 for help when their loved one is in a mental health crisis, only for things to go terribly wrong. Some kill themselves or they are killed by the police. To those listening now who've had this outcome and are bravely here to share their experiences, it's your voices that can drive change. Years ago, I sat on a Multnomah County Mental Health Advisory Council, and also on that board was a police officer who had killed a young black man. The mother of this young black man was also on this council, and this was my first insight into witnessing how something positive can happen when we sit down together to begin to disrupt the stigma and the racism, and the difficult work where trust and change starts and begins. Despite the color of our son's skin, we were quite aware that when we called 911 or the crisis team, our 6'2" psychotic son could be shot. Our son did die 9 weeks ago. He had many encounters with police in multiple cities. Portland police, along with the other police, worked hard to help him. Because for years Multnomah County has not stood up true mental health care, the police are sort of de facto mental health providers, and I have witnessed their expertise that's rivaled many professionals trained in the field. I believe if he had been assigned to the behavioral health unit earlier, he might have headed away from being homeless for 3 years in Southern Oregon. And while homeless in Ashland, there was another officer who worked very hard to find help for him. He stayed in touch with us on a regular basis, and we're grateful that he was the one that had to call us to tell us he had died. 40 years ago, I was a police dispatcher. I witnessed police behavior and actions that were illegal and shocking. Back then, things were much worse. I spoke out as a young woman, but was silenced. Today, I know to speak out. And of course, due to that job 40 years ago, I could not be eligible for the Oversight Board. We need more good cops, and there are public servants that we need to listen to, promote, support, and recruit. We need more trust in the system. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and we're sorry about your son. Thank you for sharing.
Francesca Barini.
Hello, my name is Francesca Barini. I'm on TikTok as Unusual Cards. What got me out of my house today was to ask the commissioners and the mayor to delay or until after public comment these amendments that you've brought to us. In particular, what dropped me out of my house today was the the issue of police bias in the board members, it seems like an impossible thing to measure and something that would open up an unlimited number of conversations with no direct determination. If you're saying facts about what you've personally seen the police do in our community with your own eyes, is that bias? Most of the people that I have these conversations with, they're not talking about overarching, the police are bad, the police are good. We are saying things that we have specifically seen happen to each other. And I think that voicing those concerns, whether on social media or person to person or on the news, could be perceived as bias against the police. And I think it's very important to not eliminate those voices who may have witnessed things. That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Demetria Hester. That's my colonial name. My African name is Saga McBaughlin. We are on stolen land. Let's clarify that. We are on stolen land. Let's break this down in layman terms. You guys created a group that you said supposed to speak for the community to discredit the group, discredit their work, and lie to the community like you really fucking care. None of y'all care about Black lives, indigenous lives, Black children, Black people, the cops that you put on the cop team to execute us. You know very fucking well what you're doing, because you've done it and continue to do it and lie about it. That's why you create all of these groups, to give you all this information that you already know, because you assign your cops to do the things to us. The cops are slave catchers. The cops are slave catchers. They do the job that you assign them to do, which is to terrorize and kill Black people and indigenous people. Then you sit and say, well, we're going to have a group and we're going to consider your recommendations. Fuck the recommendations. We want action. You always lie about every action you're going to take and bullshit us about what you're really going to do. But in layman terms, you created this group so that you can justify to keep killing us, then lie to us that there's good cops and that they need reform. But you know, and I know, and every Black person here in Portland knows, you do not care. You sanction these police to come out and kill us and our children and indigenous people, but yet you sit here in your smug little suits and your smug little positions, which we pay for, and you do nothing that the community wants. But yet we're pleading and begging, would you please, it's your job to do what we say. You need to be fucking fired.
Next up, we have John Jackson, followed by Steve Herring and Jordan Lewis.
Welcome.
Well, that's a tough one to follow up. Okay. Good afternoon, City Council members and Mr. Mayor. As a business owner, I'm deeply invested in the Portland community. I feel compelled to voice my concerns regarding the current state of police accountability system. Over the past years, I've participated in community engagement, PAC meetings, gaining insight into the process. Allow me to emphasize that a secure and just environment is essential for business to thrive. The presence of bad actors within law enforcement undermines the hard work of dedicated and good officers. It's imperative to weed out the bad individuals who don't meet the standards expected of law enforcement officers. However, a fair and effective accountability system cannot afford to be marred by anti-police bias. I've observed instances where the Police Accountability Commission advocates for an overtly anti-police agenda, which raises concerns about the system's impartiality. Another concern is allocation of substantial funds, approximately $12 million for a volunteer board seems a little bit excessive. As a business owner, I'm acutely aware of the city's financial constraints, Portlandiers voted for a fair and efficient police accountability system, not foreseeing the exorbitant costs associated with the Oversight Board. It seems the Portland Police Bureau could use the money looking at their vehicles and their equipment. A weakened, demoralized police force only benefits criminals, which already operate lucratively within Portland. This scenario doesn't align with the prosperous and safe environment that business and residents alike desire. Hence, I advocate for a renewed approach, a new ballot measure crafted with clear and comprehensive language. By involving the tax-paying community in this decision-making process again, we can collectively shape and a more transparent and balanced approach towards police accountability, ensuring that our city thrives economically and socially. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Steve Herring.
Hello there, I'm Steve Herring. I'm a native Oregonian and lifetime Portlander, and I'm also the CEO of Living Room Theaters here in downtown. I originally provided testimony on September 21st, and if you'll recall, I stated I scrapped my pre-written comments to take time to review the nearly 100 pages of the committee's work. I have now read the PAC document as well as the amendments proposed today. I support the council changes as common sense, positive adjustments with my own comments as follows. The mission of accountability is flawed as it solely states to be a body of discipline, which creates an environment containing only negative interactions between the public and police, the professional office, and the board. In a successful employment environment, there needs to be recognition of the staff doing the right things, as well as structure and discipline for unacceptable behavior. Commendations should be accepted and reviewed, as well as complaints, to create the whole picture of behavior of officers and the Bureau. It's telling to me that many PAC members providing testimony today speak from the sole point of view of discipline and not the whole positive employment retention practices looking to retain our best while discouraging bad behaviors of our public employees. Moving on, preponderance of evidence standards risk creating two sets of outcomes compared to criminal liability with a standard of beyond a reasonable doubt. Different outcomes from different processes can undermine public perception of accountability if we don't provide education about these differences. The criminal investigations, as outlined in these changes, may slow oversight investigations, as worded in the current amendment of tolling to criminal investigation. This can lead to a loss of public trust of oversight if it takes too long. The board review panels of 3 limits diversity and discourse. Why not make it panels of 5 and 7, as originally recommended by the PAC? And just 21 total board members will result in an overworked board if complaints exceed current benchmarks, which is very likely. Finally, data dashboards of the oversight system results should be made available to the public in real time and include budgeting and expenditures. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jordan Lewis.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. You sound good.
My name is Jordan Lewis. I'm a Portland resident. I voted yes on 26/2/17 in 2020, and I'm here asking that you not do these amendments, and that, as my previous commenters have said, you meet with the public and have some sort of publicly accountable discussion about your changes before you make them. I'm beginning to notice a pattern in Portland politics, especially as charter reform gets closer. It just seems like every time the voters approve anything, there is always some sort of shady backroom alteration of the voters' will. I mean, 87% is a pretty huge margin. And you would think when people vote on something that you would have to go through some kind of robust public input in order to change it. But it just seems like this reminds me of a few months ago when the voters approved charter reform, and then out of nowhere one day it was like, oh, we're going to alter charter reform. And people had to show up to city council to demand that the thing they voted on happen. It completely undermines any trust that the public had in the institutions of the city. And I don't expect how young people, anyone who cares about the city is supposed to vote when they know that their vote just doesn't matter. If we vote yes on something, you'll keep holding the vote over and over again until you get the answer that you want. And that's really frustrating. And I think it's pretty simple. You have to go through further public comment before you can make edits like these. So I'm going to oppose issue 964 today.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Kirk Foster, followed by John H. and Wiley Barnett. Kirk Foster. Okay. John H.
John, do you want to start?
Oh, sure. You're not Kirk?
I am Kirk.
Oh,
Go for it.
called him first, but I'll go. All right, my name's John. I'm opposed to the most of the proposed changes of the report put forward by the Police Accountability Commission. They are the most informed on police accountability or lack thereof. There's not enough time to get quality feedback, so I ask you not to vote today. Instead of getting into the weeds, which is difficult anyway with such little time, I'm going to focus on my strong opposition to having police representatives, specifically police union reps, involved in any police accountability process. I want to give two examples why. First is that we had a Nazi named Mark Kruger on the force. When he was busted erecting Nazi shrines in a Portland park and retaliated against a female cop who spoke out against him, with help of the police union and unelected arbitrators, he kept his job and was even promoted. He left the Portland Police Bureau after almost another decade and retired as the highest paid cop in 2020. The second example is when a small female photographer in 2020 was shoved from behind at a protest by Officer Budworth. Then while on the ground, he jabbed her in the face with a baton. That officer was charged with a measly misdemeanor, which could have been assault 2, measure 11 charge. It would have carried 70 months if it would have been a normal person. The police union then took to social media and lied about the woman, claiming she committed crimes and called the jab in the face an accident. This was proven to be false. In response to the cop being charged, the whole rapid response team resigned in protest. The cop eventually admitted fault and got off with only having to apologize publicly. You know who was silent after the cop admitting wrongdoing? The police union. Which of those cops were the bad apples? There was a research group, and then finally there was a research group that came here to present empirical data of positive impacts on different police reform policies, and guess what the police union did? They went on social media to degrade the group, calling them an anti-police group without any legitimate criticism. Thanks.
Thanks, John.
Kirk Foster.
Thank you. My name's Kirk Foster. I'm a Portland resident for about 30 years, so I'm not quite long enough to be a local yet. I'm also a business owner in the city for about 20 years before retiring last year. I feel the pain of the PAC to a certain degree because relative to my industry, I volunteered hundreds and hundreds of hours for city committees and advisory groups, and unless we got up here and challenged the commission directly in public, basically everything we ever said was ignored and altered to the point of being unrecognizable. And that's pretty normal for most people that volunteer on city commissions. Unfortunately, this is a lot more serious than anything I was involved in. So shortly, the clear will of the voters was to restore legitimacy to the Portland police by removing the police and their unions from having authority to investigate themselves or influence the direction of those investigations. That was the goal of the citizens. For an example, I was going to use some of those, but another example is Officer Freshour. We all know what he did. He was then fired by Mayor Adams and then rehired, and eventually rehired. That rehire and countless other examples is clear evidence to 82% of the population or the voters that Portland police and their unions cannot be involved in investigating their own. They simply won't do it, and they'll undermine it at any chance they get, and they've shown us that repeatedly. The primary purpose of these amendments, again, the primary purpose of these amendments appears to be deny the will of the voters. The decision to wait through the entire process to bring up all these concerns when they all could have been brought up with the PAC during the past couple of years undermines your guys' legitimacy, not theirs. For example, the phrase demonstrated bias could easily include anyone who has ever expressed an opinion on social media. Another, the requirements of board members be educated on police training is legitimate, but requiring them to be shut in a car with a police officer against their will just to be able to participate in a public act seems aimed at intimidation. Mayor Wheel, you said that this has to be seen as a legitimate body by the community at large, and I'll say a curious/concern about the exclusion of law enforcement accountability that is about law enforcement. If you exclude the perspective from an accountability board that's making decisions about police, how do you reconcile that? I would say that, and that was in the Oregonian, by the way, if the new investigative body needs information from a policing perspective, they can call the police to testify as witnesses. They don't have to be involved in the nominating process. Giving police nominating power only undermines the legitimacy of the board that the voters clearly wanted to be independent. Regarding the staffing concerns that I've heard mentioned by other speakers, if the Portland Police had earned the support of those 82% of voters, then they probably wouldn't have a hard time hiring. And I think making a legitimate police force will ease hiring and not make it harder. Please don't ignore the will of voters, and please meet with the PAC to discuss these things and don't vote on it today. Thank you.
Wiley Barnett. Wiley, you're muted.
Oh, finally I got unmuted. My system wasn't working that well. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, loud and clear, Wiley.
All right, thank you. I am an African-American man who's lived in Portland over 50 years. I've been an active citizen about a number of civic issues, but this police operations has been one of a very sensitive one because of my awareness of the number of disproportionate harm coming to people of color, whether especially indigenous and Latino and Muslim, and also, of course, African Americans. So I want to make this short. I know it's late. Actually, many people tonight have spoken about the kind of things that I would be concerned about. I just want to cut to the chase and say, democracy, democracy, democracy. I mean, one of the reasons that they even had the agreement between the DOJ and the city of Portland was trust, you know, to create trust between the police and the community. And you can't create trust if the police constantly take the posture of we're all innocent, we do everything right, we do nothing wrong, the people love us, and yet they're still, even now, violating some of the stipulations of the agreement. So the city council needs to help restore trust by not adopting this city attorney's proposal. Forget about that, because all you're going to do is further erode trust. And so you need to go back to the proposal produced by the Portland Police Accountability Commission. And in the main, and even in the lesser points, they have some good, solid proposals that are worthy of the city adopting. Therefore, we could increase trust between the city keeping faithful with the body that they had appointed and supported, you know, and then thereby eventually getting more trust between the citizens and the police department. It's all about trust. So don't erode what little bit of trust you might have gained by undercutting what you think would be, oh, well, we want some kind of perfect reform that just allows the police to do whatever they want.
Thank you.
Eric Cole. Remember Watts, followed by Joe Rowe and Robert Erickson.
Hi there. My name is Remy Watts. For the record, thank you so much for having me, Mayor Wheeler, commissioners. I've lived in Southeast Portland for nearly 10 years, and I currently work at the state level working on creating equity in our state social support systems. And I've been studying equity in public administration and operationalizing it for over 10 years, specifically really studying underneath a national leader for the last 6 years. I spend my days poring over organizations administrative rules and analyzing proposed legislation in the state capitol. I say all this to outline how I understand the nuance between operationalizing equity in different levels of policymaking, like statutes versus rules versus program implementation. And I understand where putting specifics into policies like the proposed city code can ultimately be binding to the mission of building and promoting equity. However, I'm concerned listening to my fellow testifiers, specifically those from the PAC members who are noting the massive cuts to their recommended policies. I'm supporting their request for a public meeting and recommend clearly going through a crosswalk between the PAC recommendations versus this presented city code for adoption to outline and understand how the city council plans to support the PAC recommendations using other policy levers available to the council, or alternatively to revise this proposed resolution to more closely match the PAC recommendations. I also want to point out a concern that I personally see in 35B.1010 around the nominating committee for the CBPA. As someone who has spent over half a decade supporting nonpartisan policy committees, I am confused and concerned about the process and don't necessarily understanding the point of appointing a committee to appoint a committee that doesn't match the legal requirements of the original committee it should be appointing. In all the publicly appointed committees I've supported, I've never seen this type of process. Generally, there's an application period that is managed by a public administrator, and applicants are chosen based on legal requirements of the committee being recruited. I'm very curious how the council decided on this process, as I see 35B.010B2 C through E as contradictory to the requirements of the CBPA, and don't understand why the appointing committee for the CBPA is not held to the same legal requirements as the CBPA itself. Thank you so much for hearing my testimony, and I appreciate you having us here today.
Thank you.
Joe Rowe.
I'm Joe Rowe. Pronouns are he, him. Am I biased? Will you exclude me, Ted? I was abused by Portland police in 2004. I fought the cops in the Court of Appeals and the cops lost. 3 judges created case law because my case was so clearly abuse of me and the law. How is that for emotion and facts, Mr. White Guy? Today, your watered down system is abusive. You abused 82% of your community today who asked for this protection. You're on the same side as the angry white guy who just said we lack facts and we want total control of the city. He's full of, you are full of. We cannot believe what you say because we see what you do today on the agenda. You dilute a system of checks and balances. Your plan is not more legally compliant. You do not tell the truth. You are communication tactics. Many people do not have the affluent resources I use to get my name cleared and money back. 82% of voters want you to hear their names. This is for Aletha Winston and her murdered son, Patrick Kimmons. This is the 2.1 million hugs for Quantas Hayes, Riston Peace, Lloyd Tony Stevenson, Kendra James, Deontay Keller, Keaton Otis, Tyrell Kareem Johnson, Andre Gladen, Aaron Campbell, James Jahar, Akbar Perez, Christopher Kalanji, and Jason Washington, and countless more. You abuse us like the cops abuse and murder the houseless. John Elfritz and James Chassie and Richard Berry, who was crushed in the same manner as George Floyd and James. This is for Demetria Hester, who tried to alert police to a white supremacist killer who took a free bus ride with his comrades paid for by Mayor Ted. We do not have police who are accountable. The lawsuits and DOJ have proven this. Your actions reverse our path up the mountaintop. You destroy the voter request for a transparent system that listens to victims of police abuse and then acts to discipline or remove them. The IPR tossed out all my concerns. If you water down gasoline, it will not run an engine. And if you water down 2 years of our work, we will have yet another system that does nothing. Let the people meet with the lawyer, and only they should make edits, not you. Thank you for the extra 9 seconds.
Robert Erickson.
Thank you. My name is Robert Erickson. I do not believe that the Portland Police Union, as an entity with obvious self-interests, has the ability nor the intention of engaging with the community in good faith. So the proposal that PBB and its union need or deserve any involvement with this new oversight board is simply alarming. These proposed changes are an obvious power play designed to undermine hard work citizens put in that they needed to put in originally because City Council wasn't acting. I wholly reject the notion presented by some testimony today that just because the year has changed, the need for this oversight board is suddenly null and void. To those saying it should be put to the voters again are suggesting that the correct way to run the city is to continuously drag out hard work as long as possible until certain voters' weak principles give out. 82% of Portland voted yes for this, and that hasn't changed, even if your fickle personal opinions have. I'm putting it on record that I expect the City Council to keep the proposed CBPA draft intact and unchanged, whether you vote on that today or at a later time. Finally, I have full faith in the work done by this committee, and I want to thank them all personally. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Heather Ryan, followed by Jared Essig. Heather Ryan, okay.
Welcome.
My name is Heather Ryan. I am a disabled trans woman. I use she, her pronouns, and I don't speak, so this is going to have to suffice. I have lived here for 5 years, and I used to not have a problem with the police. That was until I moved to Portland, where I have had a variety of experiences dealing with Portland police, ranging from being struck with the butt of a rifle by a police officer hard enough to knock me over sideways, in my wheelchair knocking me out of it, to having a police officer not move for me so I could get on the sidewalk, which is what they were telling us to do in the first place. Then, when one of my friends asked him why he wouldn't move, he said that he saw me standing up earlier in the day and walking just fine, so he wasn't going to move for me. Oh, and I have both of those incidents on video. We need this accountability board as the people have presented it to you, not after you nibble away at it until it's useless. You need to pass the board exactly how it has been presented to you by the people and the PAC. Because if you want the people of Portland to start to trust the police here, then this is the only way it will happen.
Thank you.
Jared Essig.
Jared's the last, right?
Yes.
Last but not least. Welcome back, Jared.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners, citizens of Portland. I'm representing the Rose City Iron Front. We're an anti-fascist, anti-communist, and anti-monarchist civilian front. And the issue of anti-police bias on the Police Accountability Commission has been raised. We're asking the commission to delay the vote and to hold a public meeting. We want the city attorney to sit and negotiate with the PAC. There's a legitimacy crisis on either side of this. There is also an anti-homeless and anti-houseless bias on the part of the city commission, and displacing your frustration over the crime epidemic and your failure to solve the policing crisis onto the houseless community is also evidence of a bias issue here. So I want to ask all parties to stipulate Black Lives Matter. And it shouldn't be difficult for any of you to admit. Now, for the Police Accountability Commission, I would like you to please acknowledge this simple fact. Bastards' lives matter. Can anyone agree to that? Well, I have friends who are bastards, and their lives matter, and they resent being compared to police. And this ableist and misogynistic rhetoric is totally destroying left-wing liberation movements and has to stop. Moreover, you all know what this means, don't you? Well, I have to tell you that not all cops are bastards, and this is a demonstrable fact. The dislogic and the denial of reality is also destroying left-wing liberation movements and creating a legitimacy crisis in the PAC. So I would like the PAC to demonstrate that they do not have this error and stipulate with us that not all cops are bastards, that bastards' lives matter, and let's free the people, and let's stop fornicating with the police, please. That just creates more of them. Now, you've destroyed the defund the police movement with your incitement and your obscenity and your lack of ability to renounce it. Now, real leaders will say this, and that's why Sarah Giannaron does not represent us, and that's why she didn't get elected. We're the Rose City Iron Front for liberal democracy. And we would like you to go to this website and acquire the antidote to the mass psychogenic illness that is now afflicting Portland, creating a mental health crisis in our youth, creating a policing crisis, creating the current impasse that we're at, and creating a murder epidemic. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That completes testimony.
All right, that completes testimony. Maybe we could get our staff to come back up, or at least legal counsel to come back up. And I understand during the course of the testimony, the process here is we could move forward on this, but over the course of 30 days, there's still an opportunity to bring revisions back to council. And it's my understanding that legal counsel is willing to meet with the members of the PAC. Is that correct?
That is
absolutely correct. To go through and do the crosswalk, as somebody had suggested. And then if there are agreements on changes that could be brought back to the council, that could be done. And so I appreciate your putting that on the table and making that offer. It seems very reasonable. So colleagues, any further questions or discussions? And just a reminder of where we go here. We have 2 amendments that are currently on the table, Rubio 1 and Rubio 2. And we will be taking a vote as it is a resolution. I have one just sort of basic question. A number of people mentioned that they were upset that from their perspective, demonstrably bad cops were rehired. Typically, how does that happen? And how would that change if either of these proposals were approved?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Heidi Brown again, for the record. Unfortunately, in those cases that folks were mentioning today, those are all cases where PPB, the chief actually fired those officers and an arbitrator overturned that decision. Part of what we were concerned with and some of the changes we were proposing today was try to ensure that this community board's decisions are upheld in arbitration. We don't want them overturned.
So to be clear then, even under the proposal is put forward by the PAC, an arbitrator would still be involved. They're still entitled to arbitration. Is that correct?
That is state law that union represented officers are entitled to arbitration.
Right, and it's my recollection that I have terminated officers or recommended termination, and they have been returned through an arbitration process, which I want to be clear has nothing to do with the city of Portland. And nothing to do with these proposals.
That is true.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that, just in case there was confusion on that front. Any further questions?
Yeah,
Commissioner Mapps.
I have a question. A recurring theme that came up today appears to be a desire for more public dialogue and engagement around these proposals. Is there an opportunity for that?
Yes, Commissioner. I think what Mayor Wheeler was talking about, that we had kind of had conversations in the background, was that our office would welcome that opportunity to sit down with the PAC, and that if there's then changes that are appropriate to bring back to council, we will certainly do that. And then in addition, we've also set up an email address. That's the DOJ-comments@portlandoregon.gov, and community members can submit other suggested changes or feedback as they'd like to through that for the next 30 days.
Okay, great, thank you. No more questions.
Great, any other questions to Rubio 1? Any questions on Rubio 1? Please call the roll on Amendment Rubio 1.
Mapps.
Aye.
Rubio.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye, the amendment's adopted. Rubio 2, any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mapps.
Aye.
Rubio.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye, the amendment is adopted. Rubio 2, any further discussion on the main motion as amended? Please call the roll.
Mapps.
Colleagues, I'd like to start by expressing some thanks. Specifically, I want to thank everyone who testified today. I also want to thank the members of the Police Accountability Commission for their investment in this work. And also, my heart was moved by seeing so many city staff coming together to present their best thinking on this work, so I want to thank them. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize Samir Kanal and Elizabeth Perez for their stewardship of this important project. I also, of course, want to recognize our colleagues in the city attorney's office, especially Heidi Brown, Sarah Ames, and Lisa Roberts. We appreciate your leadership in this space. And finally, colleagues, I want to express my appreciation and thanks to you. Each and every one of our offices have been deeply engaged with this project for years at this point. We wouldn't be here without our collective efforts. This proposal is the result of a deep and wide collaborative process and moves our city towards a robust and just police accountability system, which is why I vote aye.
Rubio.
I want to just take a second to ground us all again in the reason that we're here today, and that's and what our charge is. And of course, it's because 82% of voters approved Measure 26-217 in 2020. And in recent conversations with a faith leader who's a longtime friend and mentor, Pastor Weisner, Robin Weisner, he recently reminded my staff and me about grounding us again in the work. And that in part came from September 2003, the Albina Ministerial Alliance Committee on Police Policy and Training, and the principles and goals that they charted out is very important for us to be reminded about that this work is longstanding. It's decades upon decades in the making, and it takes shape as leaders pick up the work and continue it forward. And it was just important to be reminded of the goals they charted out that they've been pursuing ever since. And since that time, community's been waiting and wanting to see that community-led board to oversee the accountability of police officers that have that independent review. They have the power to subpoena and compel, and whose imposition of discipline will legally stand. It's no surprise that some of these members are the same ones who also, back in 2003, were critical in drafting the more recent measure. And we've heard a lot of those folks testify today. And to all those who put that work in to set that vision, we're greatly indebted. And because of this history, I do feel a tremendous sense of responsibility, and I'm sure all of us do, to them and to others impacted by the work to try and get this as right as we possibly can to carry forward this important community legacy. In September, when we accepted the report, I said I would be looking to ensure that we're meeting the intent of the voters and the ballot measure as clearly as possible, while also thinking operationally about sequencing and authority, about looking at what belongs in code versus what should be up to the authority of the new commission to decide and adopt, and of course, ensuring transparency and is equitable and just. And these were my instructions and the charge that I gave to my staff as she engaged in part of this work internally at the city. So this current proposal to me strikes that balance as well as it possibly can, while ensuring that the new board has the room and authority to further act on the fuller recommendations. And that's an important point for me, that they have the ability and authority to act on the fuller recommendations should they choose to do so. And for this reason, I'm going to support this resolution today. I'm also going to be very honest and say that I don't know that we got it 100% right, or that this code language is perfect. Only time will tell us that. But I want to also recognize the enormity of this moment. And there is uncertainty right now, on multiple levels for different groups and perspectives here. And we hear you, and we all need to see how this moves forward together. And while my staff and I have a clear understanding of how the PAC work was informed how it informed this package. I also heard very loud and clear that for our PAC members, they want that desire to also have a chance to engage with city staff. So I was very heartened by the offer to bridge that gap. I just want to acknowledge that was a big miss for us that we didn't do that. So I want to apologize for that. I think that after 2 years of work, you are entitled to that from us, and I think everybody's just working really fast and hard. So I'm very heartened, and thank you, Heidi and Stephanie, for engaging in that. So I'm happy to see that this is happening. There are those other opportunities to move forward. The public comment period will be open for 30 days, and then the fairness hearing, and then again when it comes back to council for the actual vote. So overall, while not perfect, as we all acknowledged, I do believe that this package allows the city attorney's office to continue the work in seeing that we get this right. And so just in closing, I just want to again appreciate all the work that went into this, the volunteers of the commission, the staff at the Community Safety Division, Samir for all of your work, the amici for all of their work, decades long of work and testimony, and also for bringing us back to those guiding and grounding principles. And also to the council staff, you all, thank you for your dedication and working collaboratively together. Thank you, Heidi and Sarah and Lisa, and as well as my own policy manager, Angela Rico, for all of the hours that she spent engaging as well. So with that, I vote aye.
Ryan.
Colleagues, I want to begin by thanking the community members who initially drafted these policy recommendations. Your efforts over the past 2 years have been essential in forming the foundation of what the council is reviewing. I must also express my gratitude to the city attorneys and council office staffs who have dedicated themselves also over the past 2 years in collaboration with PAC and the Community Safety Division. Their unwavering commitment to serving the people of Portland has been truly remarkable. Today is a significant milestone for our city as we adopt amendments to the city code for Community Police Oversight Board. I don't think anyone got everything they wanted, and you could tell by the testimony today. To me, that means we struck a good balance to uphold the will of the voters, make this operational for the Police Bureau, and align with the new charter mandate. As Portland continues to recover from the impacts of the last 3 years, let's keep in mind our decisions today represent a move towards a more accountable, transparent, and equitable future for every Portlander. I vote aye.
Gonzalez.
Reviewing these recommendations in 60 days was necessary to keep our commitments to the DOJ and federal court. It was a tight turnaround, but was doable because of our diligent staff and the city and council, including my own policy advisors, Grace Sarpak and Nick Coffey. Also want to thank the thoughtful and heartfelt testimony today from citizens. This is not an easy subject. It is balancing really conflicting polls at times, or apparently conflicting polls. And I just want to recognize your engagement in this difficult issue. The diligent work of the collective city staff to take best practices, state law recommendations, and often conflicting stakeholder feedback into consideration while showing fidelity of the vote to the will of the voters is paramount to the resolution today. And I believe that has been achieved. I see today as yet another step towards full compliance with the DOJ, and I vote aye. Thank you.
Wheeler.
I want to start by recognizing the input we've received today, both in terms of public testimony and substantial written testimony as well. As Heidi mentioned, because our timeline did not allow for a town hall or a public work session on this proposal, we've set up an email account that will ensure community members can share their thoughts with all the council offices as well as the city attorney's office in one place. I appreciate legal counsel's desire to meet with members of the PAC and go through the proposal line item by line item. I want to be very clear. I support the resolution as amended today, but if legal counsel comes back to this council, I want to assure everyone I will keep an open mind. We're required to move this process forward into the settlement agreement discussions, but I do encourage people to share their feedback for consideration if you've not yet been heard. As we've heard today, there are many strong viewpoints on this topic of police accountability, understandably so. Police officers serve a critical role in our community, and when policy violations do occur, they can have significant and irreparable impacts on the community. Likewise, when police officers do their job within the requirements of policy, the community deserves to understand why discipline may not be appropriate. I want to take a moment to focus on what accountability means. Accountability demands appropriate consequences for misconduct. None of us disagree on that. But accountability is not synonymous with punishment. It's also about ensuring the process by which investigations occur is honest, fair, and able to acknowledge circumstances in which conduct is within policy, even when that acknowledgement is difficult. The charter amendment voters approved in 2020 established a mandate for a system of accountability led by community to make these important determinations. The voter-approved charter articulated clear requirements for who is eligible to serve on that board, budgetary requirements, and provided duties and powers for the board to achieve its mission. This code is aligned with those requirements that were approved by voters. I understand there's frustration by some that the PAC recommendations may not have been adopted in totality. However, as we've heard, many of these recommendations, when consistent with the charter and the law, have been maintained. We are all appreciative of the Police Accountability Commission's recommendations, and we acknowledge their tireless work. Many of the recommendations that are not appropriate for code will be perfectly appropriate for administrative rules that the new board can implement themselves if they choose to do so. I've been very transparent about my concerns with aspects of the PAC's recommendations. One of my biggest concerns has been that without legitimacy, legality, and fairness, this board's disciplinary decisions would not survive legal scrutiny and would be reversed in the employee arbitration process that we discussed a few minutes ago. Under that kind of scenario, nobody wins. This code proposal today reflects both the mandates of the charter while also holding space for this community-led board to adopt and grow once it has stood up. Again, this is all in code. A future city council can change this if they so deem. I believe all of us at City Council truly recognize the importance of staying true to the will of the voters as reflected by the charter, and this code proposal aims to do just that. I support this resolution as amended. I vote aye, and the resolution is adopted as amended, and we are adjourned.